Just a few clicks away, and you can feed your team.
Everyone can be a grocery pro bowler with Tom Thumb's Drive Up and Go. Download the app or try an online order to get started today.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Hello, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
From our fan studios secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
It is indeed the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. My name is Alec Medford, joined by Reginald Atatula. Rigo Mendoza holding things down for you. The Turn It On, Leave It On listener. We appreciate you so very much for joining us here tonight in this abbreviated edition. Thanks for sticking around for the Cowboys Hour featuring Cavante Turpin. Always a fun conversation with the speedster. Weapon. I don't even want to call him an offensive player, a special teamer, what have you. He is just a weapon. It has been fun to see his growth and fun to get to know him a little bit better with Christy Scales and Nicole Hutchison. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved in any and all of our conversations here tonight with you until 11 o'clock p.m. And we've got a lot to get to because we have lots of happenings in the world of the National Football League. We have Monday Night Football on as we speak. In the front half of the second quarter, it is the Jags and the Joe Burrow-less
Cincinnati Bengals. Yep.
Yeah, I was just forgetting team names for a second, but it's knotted up at 7 apiece, which the Bengals did have a pretty fun team touchdown celebration after a Joe Mixon score, which I am crying because I traded Joe Mixon to Carter Freeman. Thank you for not vetoing that trade, guys. But
remember, nobody cares about your fantasy.
I know nobody cares,
Yep.
but it's still
cool.
practice. For me.
It's just I have to. It's a policy of the show.
Yes,
you have to mention it every time it comes up. Yep.
Absolutely,
Yep.
and fully aware. I just like to talk. So we're going to talk about these NFC kind of paradigms, if you will, because did that San Francisco and Philadelphia matchup yesterday change the way that you view the NFC? 877-881-1053. Also live on Twitch and YouTube. Twitch.tv/DallasFanCam 1053 The Fan on YouTube, as well as you saw yesterday the highly touted matchup between two of the favorites in the NFC, the Eagles and the 49ers. And boy, was it a very unserious and uncompetitive football game as the 49ers just absolutely routed the Eagles 42-19 at Lincoln Financial Field in the city of brotherly love. The Eagles get spanked at home. Brock Purdy was absolutely fantastic in that matchup. I believe he was on paper at least. And I want to say it was 6 straight drives on offense that the 49ers scored a touchdown.
That's correct.
Just very efficient game for the 49ers. Very impressive effort. And it's funny because the box score for the Eagles doesn't really look all that bad.
Neither did the game, at least from my perspective, right? Because this is the thing that I took away more than anything is, the Niners, when healthy, are a monster, right?
Yeah.
The things that we knew about the San Francisco 49ers is that schematically they have all of these things at their disposal. They had those 3 weeks of less than stellar play, and people were like, oh, they are human. And you know what that humanity was? Trent Williams wasn't playing, right? Deebo Samuel wasn't playing or playing up to his highest abilities. Those guys, when they are healthy, this is a team that is loaded with talent. And the reason why I bring that up, and the reason why I kind of scoff when you mentioned Brock Purdy played well, I understand the ways that we talk about football in the NFL. We lean very much on a quarterback. And so with that being the nature of the way that we build this, when we talk about a team, the first place we go is the quarterback, except that's not what you need to do with this Niners team. Brock Purdy keeps things on schedule, and he is very good at what they need him to do. However, I believe in this game, and you'll have to give me a second to actually get this number back in front of me. He did, in fact, throw for 314 yards, right? He definitely had the number that was big. Out of those 314 yards, I believe something like 84 of them were air yards.
Yeah.
Which is to say, a large majority of them were not air yards, were yards after catch, things of that nature. And I don't say that to try and knock him down, but I say it to try and point to the fact that this is a team of a whole bunch of dudes that can get things done, right? And it's not even just that they have other dudes, right? Because Christian McCaffrey has 17 touchdowns in 12 games, right? is that they have a whole bunch of them that they can go to. And so one thing you saw is within this, an Eagles team that was somewhat susceptible, particularly on defense, over the middle of the field. And then you see a team that is particularly good at attacking that, and they just went down and they scored what felt like every time down. And you compare that to the way that the Eagles were not efficient in that way. They had plenty of good drives. I mean, you talk about the numbers on this thing, and they were decently good at it. And now they weren't good at running the football. But they were decently good about getting up the field. They still were able to get the ball to their playmakers through the air when you talk about A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but they did not capitalize at the ends. And a lot of that is, you can give credit to the Niners defense as well for being on their P's and Q's when it comes to schematically, and then also the talent that they have. Like, this is really tough when you talk about that Niners team, because it ultimately feels like it comes down to a perfect meshing of schematics and players, which is scary for me, right? Like, I hate to be the dude who like ends up being somewhat alarmist when it comes to the NFC, but like, and I know that there's people that, you know, will look at me and say like, this is soft or whatever. I really do. I try and lean on Bobby Belt when I mention this, because I know Bobby Belt is very connected in that building of the Star. He views this as, this team has something that maybe even might be psychological in some ways when it comes to the Niners. And I couldn't blame him for looking at this team. Like, the way that this team is built right now is scary. And so in some ways it did change the way that I view the NFC, because look, the Eagles, we can continue to talk about that portion of it, but the Niners part of it is the part that really caught my attention, because it feels like that's a machine and well-oiled at that.
And I'm right there with you. I think that's what I'm starting to take away from this more than anything, is I always, and really through most of that 10-win resume that the Eagles have built up, is my notion has been that's a beatable team that is just very good when it matters. That's what I was getting. Their touchdown conversion rate going into this game, when in the red zone, was top 5 in the NFL, I believe, for the Eagles. So, and that's what bit them in this game, was, you kind of touched on it there, was they just weren't able to beat that 49ers defense once they got inside of the 20. Achilles heel there. But for me, what I've taken away from this is that the 49ers are exactly who we feared that they would become, and that they were. Going into this season, whenever you saw them on the Cowboys schedule, whenever you saw Brock Purdy able to come back from that elbow injury, when you see a pretty much complete team coming back that just got stronger over the offseason, adding a couple of guys in free agency, adding a Chase Young at the deadline. That's just a very deep team. So I think I just strengthened what I already imagined, that kind of echoing what you said, this is a very well-oiled machine on both sides of the football. And for Brock Purdy, you mentioned it was nothing crazy when you actually look at the level of play and what he did in that game. It's just the fact that he has mastered this, working hand in hand with Kyle Shanahan, to the point where he knows exactly what his job is, and he does it exactly the way he is supposed to. Not too much, not enough. You know, it's always right there in the middle, right where he needs to be. And Kyle Shanahan's game planning against other defenses that you think are better. Really, I don't think the Eagles' defense is as good as people have talked about them.
Oh no, they definitely have some. They definitely have some holes. Like ones in particular is the middle of the field, which is why they were desperately hoping to get Shaquille Leonard. And today we learned that they did. Unfortunate for your Dallas Cowboys.
Exactly. So the only thing that I really feared for the Niners was in that first quarter, early in the game. You see their safety depth getting tested a little bit with a couple of early injuries for them. But yeah, other than that, this is a really good team that just showed that they are the juggernaut of the NFC to this point. So I think it kind of shifted a little bit of my view for the Eagles, just a little bit.
Okay.
But if anything, it just strengthened a belief that already permeated throughout this season about the 49ers.
Well, one of the ways that it obviously changes this is that it adds a loss to the loss column for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? That is a 10-2 team that is coming into AT&T Stadium next week, and now you have the opportunity with a win versus that team to be level on record in the NFC East. And that is huge for the Dallas Cowboys prospects, because it was almost exactly a week ago. It was a week ago that we had the conversation of, are you resigned to this Dallas Cowboys team sitting in 5th place? And as of right now, you can see the light and the way, the opening that exists for you to no longer have to exist in that 5th place. You can maybe move into 2nd, maybe even possibly considering what kind of record or what kind of schedule the Niners still remain to see, possibly even make it to that 1 seed if, things bounce the right way. And so in that way, yes, it does change the way that you view the NFC, because maybe you have an opportunity to work towards a bye or at least be able to host in the postseason. And we've talked about a lot how good this Cowboys team is at home. And you could, I was about to say the record. Yeah, the record does show that, in fact. But obviously the statistics and the ways in which they're able to score and the ways that they feel comfortable show up. This is an interesting text on the truckwreck.com text line. Again, the number to text in is 877-881-1053. From the 214, they say, I still want 5th. And they don't give me any explanation. Please, 214, if you could continue, give me more of your thought process there, because I'm interested in that, right? If you are able to get to this place, one thing that it also could do for you, if you do, like, let's say you in fact do and handle your business on Sunday, and then you give yourself ultimately the opportunity and you get into the place where you win the NFC East. You end up being, let's say, 2nd in the NFC. That then sets you up on a course to meet up with the Niners, not in the divisional round, but further on, and maybe in the championship round, which is the place where the Cowboys, that's almost the promised land for this period of time, right? Obviously, everybody's going to say the Super Bowl and winning that trophy. But with that being the case, right, it's been a long time since the NFC Championship game has been set foot upon by your Dallas Cowboys. And I know there's a lot of Cowboys fans for whom that is the only metric of success. And winning the NFC East would give you an opportunity to have a better path towards that place and not have to face. And I understand, like, some people think it's weak or it's soft talk to try and avoid people. But I think there's something very particular that you could talk about with these Niners, where the last 3 times you played them, you lost to them. And it feels like you lost in a way that was not necessarily just they had happened to beat you, right? It felt like there was something in addition, right? And so I'm not saying I don't think you're capable of winning against this team, but I mean, it makes it easier if you don't have to face that challenge until later on, when you have more opportunities to get yourself in the place where you feel great about it. And so, and they respond back. The 214 says, I don't think we're getting to 1. So if we do, I want that, of course, but the NFC South game is where it's at for me. And I get that, right? The opportunity to play one of the teams that's worse, but I think at least for me, and I'll let you get in here because I realize I'm monopolizing this segment at this point. Because I'll ask this as a question. Is there any of the other teams in the NFC outside of, maybe let's just keep it to these 2 teams that we're talking about that faced off on Sunday, the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers? Is there any other team in the NFC that you'd believe, assuming that your Cowboys are playing some facsimile of the way that they're playing right now, that you believe poses a challenge against these Cowboys?
Ooh, because I think it really came down to situational football, and I think you did deserve the win that you got last Thursday, the Seahawks. I could totally see that. And that's a team that is playing a lot better than they did on Thanksgiving Day against the 49ers, of all people. And they've got the 49ers coming up in their next game on December 10th. So that's going to be a fun matchup there. But the Seahawks are ones that, if Geno Smith keeps playing at that level, I totally would not write them off, because Geno Smith doesn't like when you write him off.
That's right. He won't write back.
Yeah, because he won't write back. And I think that's one of the teams, or one of the only teams really outside of the 2 that we already just talked about, that you look at the playoff picture for the Cowboys and you really bat an eye. The other teams around the NFC, I just don't really see anything that after this past week gives me any kind of scare.
Ooh, a good name brought up, the Packers as a potential team. They are coming on a little stronger. You did see a little something from Jordan Love over the last few weeks that makes you look at him and say maybe they did in fact find their quarterback.
Yeah.
And so the idea of maybe they will continue on with him, especially if they could get something, I guess let me not go into like the contract negotiation, something like a Geno Smith deal or something where it's very clear that he's the starter. However, it does not lock you in such a way where you have to commit fully to him for an extended amount of time. Because it does seem like he has a little something, maybe, just maybe. But I think also when you consider, it's easy when we kind of have a myopic view of it from the Cowboys. We're close to this. Yeah. And so we can talk about the good things, but we often talk about like the littlest nitpicking things because you want this team to get better. And of course, you're going to focus on all the different things. You look around this league this year and there are no perfect teams. There is no team that is always on their P's and Q's 100% of the time. There's a lot of weak spots that you've seen through 13 weeks of National Football League play. And with that being the case, if you get this team that has realized what they are on offense, and especially if you view that game against the Seahawks as one of those things defensively where sometimes, you just get a game where you don't show up in the way that you should. This is one of the better teams, if not one of the best teams in the NFL. And I understand that you could say that there's not necessarily a resume against good teams. We've had that conversation a lot. But if you just look at the way that they play, there's a lot of good football within this Dallas Cowboys team, and I'd put them against the Packers and feel good about it.
Yeah, and I think that where I'd get scared there is if it's in Lambeau. That's where I'd get a little bit more nervous, cold weather and just the history that the Cowboys have with Lambeau Field.
No, but on top of that, you're right. Like, football is one of these weird things in the NFL where a majority of the season is played in certain conditions, and then the postseason is played in entirely different ones. And so, like, pass-heavy teams, you see it sometimes. You get to the postseason, and this kind of changes the way that you play because the elements factor into that passing. So, okay, I hear you on that. That's fair.
From the 214 real quick, do we not fear the Lions? Not as much as I used to, honestly. I just don't know if they're built for January, and it's starting to show a little bit more throughout the season. They had a good get-right game, this week, but yeah, I mean, I respect them. I just don't fear them the way that I did at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, no. But honestly, the idea, I asked the question not necessarily to parse all the individuals, because look, that's fair, but I think more to point to the idea of, I don't think that this team needs to be matchup hunting outside of like the idea of, hey man, if you can get to a place where you still want to play the Niners, of course.
Yeah.
But if you can play them in that big stage where you've had some level of accomplishment, I think that'd be really good as well. And that's what the door has opened up through this game where the Niners beat the Eagles. So there is that. I know that coming into this on Friday, I was saying that I was making the argument at least that, if you were trying to decide from a Cowboys perspective which team you wanted to lose, the Niners might not be an awful choice because I understand that would have put, the Eagles further ahead of you, but we both know how vulnerable the Eagles are, as you saw. The Niners are one of those teams where I would like to see more cracks in that facade because, as I mentioned, when they have all their guys healthy, that looks like a really tough thing. But anyways, I think, at least from my perspective, this does feel like it changes the NFC, the landscape, this game.
It absolutely does to me. And a great conversation to get us off and running here on the Get Right until 11 o'clock tonight. And coming up next, it was such a weird Mavs weekend. Any takeaways, or is it all just noise? We'll talk about it next on The Fan.
All day, every day, bringing you insights and information no one has right here on The Fan and on the Odyssey.
clinic visits. This is health insurance done right. At Aetna CVS Health, healthier happens together. Learn more at aetnacvshealth.com. Exclusions and limitations apply. Visit our website for details.
It's football season, and the NFL is in full effect on the free Odyssey app. We're heading into the final stretch of the regular season, and the playoff picture is starting to come into focus. Whatever team you're rooting for, the free Odyssey app has you covered with the local talk and your team's podcasts. Plus, listen to play-by-play of every Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night game from Westwood One. If you're looking for the NFL, it's all on the free Odyssey app. Download it today and search for your favorite team. That's AUDACY.
It's a Cowboys Monday, brought to you by Twin Peaks and K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing on 105.3 The Fan.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Frankel & Frankel. Life is unpredictable and accidents happen. Frankel & Frankel are the go-to attorneys for car and truck wrecks in the DFW. And if you or a loved one have been injured in an accident, contact Frankel & Frankel for a free consultation at truckwreck.com or call 214 or 817-333-3333.
The 28-0 run against Golden State. They've now tied the longest run in team history. Oh! And straight. Luka just picked the pocket of Chet Holmgren. 30 in a row! 30 in a row! 30 in a row!
A franchise record and the longest since 1996. Incredible. A weird night and a weird weekend for the Dallas Mavericks this Saturday, as they hosted the Oklahoma City Thunder and somehow found a way to lose despite all of that momentum.
Don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't do
sorry.
that.
I know it's your show.
You're
I'm
off
sorry.
the show tomorrow.
I regret it.
That's how that
Wow.
works. Yep.
Wow. See, he
I'm
makes
getting
all
you
the
out of here.
decisions around here.
Getting you out of here.
That's
just for that.
Man.
Yep.
Well, you can hear me 10 to 2 tomorrow instead. I guess that's where I'm going to get relegated.
That's right.
To get right here on 105.3 The Fan. Let's talk about these Mavs because it was a weird weekend for this NBA team that resides in Dallas as they fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder 126-120. Despite a historic 30-0 run.
Well, you talk
in
about
the fourth
that.
quarter.
Let's not forget, right? The weekend did not just start on Saturday. You also had Friday. This was a back-to-back situation.
Yes,
so
it was.
Friday, you hosted the Memphis Grizzlies, and of course, you did that without Luka Doncic as he was welcoming his daughter to the world. You did that without Dante Exum as he was welcoming his child to the world, and then Tim Hardaway Jr. has been out. And so in that game, you found a way, and it feels bad to say it that way, but in some effects, like, you know, you come in as the favored team, even though you do not have, you know, portions of your team, and you lose against the Memphis Grizzlies, a lowly team who also has a lot missing due to injury and such. And then, like you mentioned, you had a Thunder team that came in that was really good Thunder team, but you were able to go on a 30-0 run. You have this like big emotional run after, you know, having a rough start of it, not having Kyrie Irving in this game after he kind of tweaks his foot in the game on Friday. Come back, and then ultimately you cannot close out this game. And so with that being the case, was there anything over the course of that weekend, those two games, the various personnel issues, or, you know, I guess issue isn't the right word, but the various personnel things that went on, is there anything within that you felt was notable, anything that you took away from this? Goodness gracious, the Lightning are just scoring all the goals. 4-0 in Tampa. The Lightning over the Stars. But was there anything of this weekend that you took away, or is this just all, you know, you didn't have your full roster in the way that you wanted to? It's not worth talking about. This is all just kind of noise. Keep it moving.
For me, I think it's for the most part just noise because you were, as you mentioned, so depleted in terms of personnel. But I think there were like. I hate being the moral victories guy, but I feel like you did actually see some good basketball from your team, especially in the latter of those two games against the Thunder. You got some valuable contributions from some guys that I didn't expect to have to be in that position this early in the season. I mean, if you told me that Derrick Jones Jr. was going to be playing 33 minutes in this game, I would tell you, oh no, something has gone horribly wrong, and I don't know how I'm going to get there. He was knocking down all the three-pointers. 24 points in 33 minutes on an off night for Grant Williams. You needed a guy to step up. You got that. AJ Lawson out here draining open look threes was really nice to see. And then Derek Lively had himself a game.
Yes.
He had a few
game
blocks.
and a half, in fact.
Yeah. Had some blocks to go along with a 20-point double-double, 16 boards.
Wait, did you say some blocks when he had 7 whole blocks?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
very good.
Yeah, I was intentionally understating.
Okay.
He had himself a game. And it's incredible to see what he continues to do at 19 years old. And it definitely felt like that game that you needed to see something from a guy like a Derek Lively because you are so depleted. And you needed that action underneath the rim because you're not going to get any contributions from a guy like a Kyrie Irving who wasn't playing, who wasn't going to attack the rim in a way that we would like to see. And we talked about it at some point last week on this show about, the Mavs getting close to the rim versus getting to the rim.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see that you're getting a guy even in just a one-game sample size that is getting to the rim and actually scoring some points in that attack. It was nice to see that Jaden Hardy didn't give you too much, so you were getting some contributions from a guy like even Seth Curry knocking down some tougher shots beyond the arc. So, I like what I saw despite the final score. It was just cool to see that, hey, some of your better players and your key contributors weren't playing in this game, and you still got some valuable contributions from guys that you typically wouldn't expect that from.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely some positive takeaways to take away from this game, even though I think you have to narrow it down, right? There are early portions of this game where it does not look like anybody else is particularly helping, and we are back in this place, in this space, where because Kyrie Irving isn't there, Luka Doncic is having to carry it. And let me press pause on that positivity that I was going to spread. This is some of the potential takeaways that you have to think about. This is not the first time this season alone that we're talking about Kyrie Irving and his foot or his feet and, maybe missing time. Like, this is a dude who, when you were acquiring him, the concern was him showing up to work, and it wasn't simply that one thing that everybody talks about. That obscured it because that was such a big, narrative thing. Yeah. Obscured that he has some injuries. And I mean, look, he's a dude who's played a good amount of basketball in his career. And, over that time, you will accumulate some injuries. He has, I don't want to call him injury prone, but he will miss some time with injuries. And so the question needing to be, this team was built under the understanding that you have two pillars, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And is this going to be something that nags and lags on? Is this going to be something that perpetuates itself? Is going to be a question. But then also within that run, the 30-0 run, I think we saw something in there. You talked about, putting in the guys, Derek Jones Jr., who is, he feels like he's going to be your consistent starter on the wing. It's good seeing him knock down threes because that's what's going to be necessary for him to be on the court. What I did like is seeing Derek Jones Jr., seeing Omax Prosper get a little time, seeing AJ Lawson, dudes who have a little bit of size, have some length, help you defensively get you back into that game. Because that was the thing. This is the thing with the Mavericks that we all look at and we go, that's the big question mark. That's the thing with this roster. And one of the things you saw was them getting into passing lanes, them being able to execute a defensive vision when they were going and trapping Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at the point, once he gets across the timeline and making other players on the team do things. And then when they pass, get in those passing lanes, get out on the break, go get easy transition buckets. Those are the things that you saw in a small sample, obviously, but it gave me some level of hope that, okay, there's proof of concept. Can you guys maybe still give that kind of effort and get into the passing lanes and do that as a team collectively in a way? Because those are things that are going to be necessary to make this defense better, and that's what's going to be necessary for you to do any level of competing this season. So that's one of the things. On the truckwreck.com text line from the 214, they also mentioned AJ Lawson. And on the other 214, they say it's mostly noise. They're going with you, but the concerns, defense, and injuries, especially Kyrie. Yeah, so I'm with you there. And I guess I was talking about maybe some of the positives in that little run, but some of the negatives were Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was cutting you up on defense on Saturday. And on Sunday, the thing that got me is Desmond Bane, who is a great shooter, TCU alum, obviously, shout out, right? Great shooter. He can do a little bit off the bounce, but this is not a guy that you look at as a slasher of any sorts. And he was driving down your throat consistently. And so, yeah, those defensive concerns remain. And obviously, so, that run is a good thing, but it can't be runs. It needs to be more consistent.
It does, and I'm sorry, quick aside.
Please do.
I'm just looking at the box score of the Grizzlies game against the Mavs. Mm-hmm. Remember when that dude David Roddy absolutely pulverized them last season?
Was that one or two times? Because I'm trying to remember. I know that there were some folks that were like, I really do hate David Roddy. Yeah.
it takes me back to fall. It was amazing.
Which
calls.
honestly speaks, it really does speak to how much the Memphis Grizzlies are in a bad spot, because David Roddy was a very nice piece to like kind of throw in the rotation. But this year they've had to depend on him in a way. Like they've been looking for him or Conchar or Santi Aldama to like really play for them. And that speaks to the injury issues that they have had.
Yeah, they've had all kinds of issues over there in Memphis so far this season. But I do like the point that you brought up about the defensive efforts, especially in that Thunder game, because that 30-0 run doesn't happen without some key stops. And it wasn't just the Thunder weren't knocking down their shots. It was great rim protection from Derek Lively. It was Luka poking a ball out.
Well, some of it was them knocking down their shots, but at least they weren't attacking you down the middle of your defense.
Exactly. And that's what I was happy to see was, it wasn't one of those just a totally off shooting night. You got some actual contributions there on the defensive end in that run. So, and it's guys that are coming off the end of the bench too. It's not your front five that you're expecting to at least give that level of effort late in the game. And it's incredible that all went down in the fourth quarter too. At least you know that this team can stay competitive when it matters. And really impressive that Luka, missed a game because he was welcoming his child into the world. And I bet he did not get much sleep, willing to put money on that.
Sure.
And he came back and played all but 2 minutes in that game.
46 minutes.
That was impressive.
If you do want to speak on Luka and like the maturity, right? Obviously having the child, but like that's the narrative part of it. One of the things that's tough though is like he spurs and he really does drive this run. And as you heard when we played it on the audio coming into this segment, he was the one who capped off the 30-0 with a steal and then getting up the floor and finishing in transition, right? He was the one who capped that run, but he also allowed a missed call in his estimation to kind of throw him back off his game at a certain instance. And so he's been better about that this season, it feels like, but he does need to continue to make sure that he's not allowing, tiffs or, with the officials or what have you, to throw him off his game at all, especially in instances like this where hopefully you don't have to have very many instances where he is the entire lifeblood of the team because there's not another engine that can kind of make things go. But this was one of those instances, and if you get off because you are the main, distributor, you can kind of mess a lot of this up. And so that was a little disheartening. But again, I think ultimately there's a decent amount of noise, but I think that there were some things that I thought could be some level of takeaway from this weekend, especially because you have a couple of losses, which was unfortunate. And so now your Mavericks are in this place in the West where they currently sit at 6th, right? So this is different than the second place that they sat after, a portion of their schedule. They're now in this place where they're right about where I think some of us anticipated they would be at the start of the season. Of course, that doesn't mean that this is where they'll stay, but I think it's interesting to see that portion of it. The Mavs next take on the Jazz, the Utah Jazz, and that's on Wednesday at the AAC.
7:30 tip then, and then the Trailblazers on Friday on the road. So we'll see if the Mavericks can bounce back and hopefully get a little bit healthier. That would be nice. And also, the Dallas Stars not having a good time because Andre Vasilevsky is still fantastic against these Dallas Stars, at least tonight. He has been, I watched, they had a nice breakaway in an attempt to try to get him looking, and he has just been fantastic. It was really the Stars' best chance to score earlier in the third period, but it's 4-0 in the waning moments of the third period.
This is a little get back for the 8-1 final on Saturday.
Yes, it absolutely is. A 4-0 blanking, it looks like. That's kind of gross, but it is halftime as well on Monday Night Football, 14 apiece between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars. We will take you on a trip around the NFL coming up next, where we will let you know about Shaq Leonard and where he is going. The Jets want another quarterback switch and more on the Get Right.
Coming up on the next KNC Masterpiece, any given Saturday, Mike asks all the football questions, plus we have another Dallas Cowboys giveaway for you. So you got to tune in 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here on The Fan.
at a retailer near you.
Fill your game day cooler with the refreshing taste of Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Smooth, real brewed tea with a 5% kick of alcohol. Look for the bright yellow cans. Twisted Tea. Keep it twisted.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
RJ Chop here with my good friend Dr. Mark Bashar. Have you been losing your hair? And I was, trust me, steadily losing my hair. You don't have to go through the rest of your life bald. You can go do something about it with Dr. Mark Bashar, the first in the Southwest to have this robotic hair restoration treatment. He's done more of these than anybody else. You can go see him. 817-473-2120. Mansfield and South Lake offices. Dr. Mark Bashara. Hit up markbasharamd.com. Tell him RJ Choppy for the Fan sent you.
Boomer Esiason is on the Fan. Check out Kickoff, getting you ready for every game. Sunday mornings at 7 on the Fan. Presented nationally by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos, brought to you by those who drink it. And Lowe's. Lowe's knows home improvement. It's Boomer on 105.3 The Fan.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Classic Chevrolet is leading the way to finish the year #1 in America. They're racing hard with year-end savings on over 400 Silverados. Shop them all at ClassicChevrolet.com. This is Texas. This is Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads and relax and enjoy the difference.
Back here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan, about to take a trip around the NFL, get you the latest news and notes around the league, including this Monday Night Football matchup. That in just a moment. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved in any and all of our conversations, as well as Twitch and YouTube. Dallas Fan Cam on Twitch and 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. But let's delay the inevitable no longer and take a trip around the NFL, where we are back from half between the Bengals and the Jaguars on Monday Night Football, knotted up at 14 apiece. The Jaguars possessing the football first on offense to start the third quarter, where we do have a little bit of news out of that game, as Reggie has told me that Christian Kirk, the wide receiver, has been ruled out of this game with a groin injury.
Yeah, it's sustained a groin injury in this one, and so he's done for the game. It's tough because obviously Calvin Ridley is the bigger name on this team. Yeah. Obviously, played really great when he was with Atlanta, had the gambling thing. They released him, and now, they traded for him. The Jaguars traded for him from the Atlanta Falcons when it was apparent that they kind of wanted to move off him. And he has big play potential, and he has those kind of tools. However, the more consistent name that is factored into the way that this offense works, even though it's like a defensively led team with the Jags, is Christian Kirk. So that's a tough blow to this Jaguars team in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals.
And it's actually been a pretty competitive game, impressive so far, as they are knotted up at 2 scores apiece. But a nice 3rd and 1 stop by the Bengals defense on a running back dive up the middle for the Jags, forcing a punt. So we will keep you updated on the rest of that game. And nobody cares about my fantasy team, but feed Evan Ingram. Elsewhere around the NFL, yes, Shaq Leonard has made a decision, and it is not the Dallas Cowboys.
No.
He will be signing, or has signed, with the Philadelphia Eagles, the former All-Pro linebacker. The team announced that they have signed the former All-Pro linebacker today. And he previously visited with the Cowboys earlier last week, came to the Star, had lunch with Jerry Jones, the whole nine, went to Philly the next day. This all coming after he was waived by the Indianapolis Colts back on the 21st of November after spending the first 6 years of his career there. It doesn't feel like he's played that long, but he's made 4 All-Pro teams, so it probably should feel like he has played that long. But he has had some recurring back injuries that derailed a little bit of that success, lost his step a bit, got upset about his playing time this season, was very vocal about it, forcing the team to waive him. He clears waivers. He has his choice between the Cowboys and the Eagles, and even after that ass whooping, he chooses the Eagles.
Yeah, I think some of this is where he felt needed and felt like he had opportunity. You mentioned that, leaving the Colts was part because he wanted more opportunity to play, and it feels like in the system that they were utilizing the Colts, he probably didn't fit that as well as you would want. And so I think even with these instances, or with the Cowboys and the Eagles, yes, we know that the Cowboys need more linebacker depth, but I think you look at it and you talk about it as depth probably. And I think that Marquise Bell has played really well stepping into kind of that linebacker role. I wonder if Shaquille Leonard looked at this and said, okay, you have a couple of guys that you probably are going to feel more comfortable continuing to run with. We talked about the Eagles, and what they have is they just have a problem in the linebacker situation. Yeah. And so I think he might have more opportunity to get on the field immediately and maybe more consistently with the Eagles. And I wonder if that's ultimately what it came down to. I don't know that makes it feel any better for anybody around these parts. But I think that at least when you put it that way, it probably doesn't make you feel like he picked them over you because he liked them more necessarily. I think that it was just more of the circumstance. It's a 1-year deal for that man. We don't know what the details are of it, but I imagine whatever it was, it does seem like the Cowboys are willing to meet the compensation. That seems very much more about the role.
Absolutely, and you mentioned that they have a problem at linebacker to the Eagles, and that's because guys like Nakobe Dean and Zach Cunningham going down earlier in the season, and you saw that exploited even as recently as yesterday against the 49ers, where they abused mismatches against guys like Nicholas Morrow and Christian Ellis. So Deebo Samuel absolutely torching them over the middle. And good offensive coordinators are going to find a way to do that. But you mentioned maybe that's part of the reason why, or maybe the reason why the playing time. There's also a bit of history with Nick Sirianni and Shaq Leonard, as Nick Sirianni spent time as the offensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts. And when he was asked about his relationship with Leonard last week, he told reporters that they were, quote, very close and still actively spoke to each other as friends. So probably multiple factors there, but I bet it did come down to, at its core, hey, I want to play. And it definitely felt like the Eagles were the landing spot where he would get the most immediate impact possibility there. So good for him, but not good for the Eagles because we don't root for the Eagles. So he goes to the Eagles on a 1-year deal. And speaking of another team that wears green that has a problem, the Jets have a problem at quarterback, to the point where we got some reporting today, this one that I'm reading from Diana Rossini of The Athletic.
She did break this on Twitter, letting us know that, the Jets want to change quarterback, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
They benched Zach Wilson. They put in Tim Boyle, who is, seeing him play, he's the worst quarterback that I recall seeing. And I don't say that with any, joy in my heart to say it, but it's just, as objective as I can be. And they saw the effects of that, ultimately having to bench him in the middle of that game yesterday for Trevor Siemian, who is another one of those quarterbacks that probably, depending on how it's looked, you might be able to say something like he's one of the worst quarterbacks. Now, that's probably unfair. He's looked somewhat, I guess, serviceable, not like you want him to start or anything. And so it's, according to The Athletic's Diana Rossini, she said that, the Jets want to make another quarterback change and leaning towards, of course, Zach Wilson, who would be probably your best option there, understanding that, they have not made a lot of decisions that would give them better options. Hello, Joe Flacco. And although she stated that Zach Wilson had hesitancy, that was part of her report.
Yeah.
Head coach Robert Saleh apparently downplayed that this earlier today when he was talking to reporters, saying, quote, if he was reluctant to play, he wouldn't be here. And so that seems like what's going down, but I don't believe Diana Rossini to be a liar or to not be thorough in her sourcing. And let's take her at her word there. If Zach Wilson is reluctant to play again, and I did see other reporting that said that maybe that would be about the idea of injury risk, can you blame him? That is not in a good offensive line. He's had to run around, and also this has just been hellacious for him behind there. Now, of course, you can also take this to a whole nother place where this does not seem like this is a place where they necessarily want you beyond this year. Why would you go back out there and risk any level of injury and also more embarrassment?
All great points, and to go along with you, I'm not Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe Diana Rossini to be a liar, so I think that there's legitimate reasoning there, and like you said, this team does not want him around much longer, so why would you risk what future you have left in the NFL, per se? It's playing behind that abhorrent offensive line? Yeah, no, not for me. And if that is the thinking of Zach Wilson, then good for him, because I would not want to do the same either. So they're looking for answers at quarterback and not exactly finding them, as we did get the reporting over the weekend from NFL Network saying, hey, that Aaron Rodgers thing opening up the practice window is cute and all, but probably most likely not going to happen. So
yeah, and I think that's more just because he's stated that he's not going to play unless they're within contention. And this is why it's, this falls on the New York Jets and their decision making. Like, they laid all of this out when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. When Aaron Rodgers went down, they very well should have, at that time, they had plenty of opportunity to go and see if they could find other options that'd be able to tide them over or help them out, because you knew what you had in Zach Wilson. They decided to lollygag and wait around and believe that they could just, make something happen with Zach Wilson. And you had plenty of opportunity to bring in Joe Flacco was brought in by the Browns, and he looked passable. He looks like the best quarterback that the Browns have been able to play, outside of maybe when Deshaun Watson was playing the best that he ultimately looked this season. And so, he was with your team last season, right? That seems like the easy path, and they did not go there. And now you're in a place where you decided to start Tim Boyle. Like, that's not a decision that a team with options and the ability to control their destiny should have made. And so this is a problem of your front office and your team as an organization. It's an organizational failure. And it does stink that ultimately the weight is carried by the players in this instance. Can I throw one more thing here and around the NFL? Are you familiar with Michael Orr?
Yeah. Grew up around him pretty much.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with that movie.
Oh, okay.
Blindside.
All right.
Yeah, not literally.
I was like, I don't think you were.
I just watched that movie plenty of times.
Okay, very good. Michael Orr, former NFL lineman, obviously, like you mentioned, the subject of the Blindside movie. He demanded millions of dollars from the Tuohys, the couple that obviously in real life, but it obviously was depicted in the movie by Sandra Bullock. They took him in, and within that, he said that they were withholding money and did not pay him money that he thought he was owed after, from the successes and the profits of that blockbuster movie. Well, Sean and Leanne Tuohy apparently filed documents today saying, as they continued their dispute, saying that Michael Orr has demanded money from them twice since 2021, and apparently they're claiming that he has been, extorting them for money in their legal response. So I love this as like the Uno reverse card that they're doing. It's like, no, we did not pay him. He was trying to extort us. And I'm just, look, I don't have an answer as to who is right in this situation. I choose to believe that it's probably Michael in this instance. However, right, I don't know for certain by any means. I do kind of love the idea of like, no, you're not going to sue me. I'm going to sue you. Like, there's just something hilarious about that level of retort in this. So, yes, the Tuohy situation with Michael Orr has not gotten any cleaner, will continue to be a mess. And you know what's good about messes? They can be kind of dramatic and fun to watch from time to time.
From our 1,000-foot view, it can absolutely be fun to watch. So I am going to keep up with that story because the adult Uno reverse card is insane. That's your trip around the NFL. A quick Monday Night Football update before we get out of here. 21-14 is the score now. Cincinnati Bengals ahead of the Jaguars after a 76-yard Jamar Chase touchdown.
Hey, man, if you can get chunk plays with Jake Brown on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. The corner just absolutely sold out on a pass down the sideline to Chase, and Chase just caught it and ran. It was pretty fun to watch, and a nice gritty in the end zone to celebrate after. But coming up next on the Get Right, we have Week 13 NFL overreactions. Is the NFL MVP a 49er? Next on The Fan.
Take your Turn It On, Leave It On fan experience everywhere you go with our honest.
while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Sean and RJ here for BetterHelp. Whether or not your family gives gifts during the holidays, you get to define how you give to yourself. And the holidays are a great time to do that. So whether it's by starting therapy, going easier on yourself during the tough moments, or treating yourself to a day of complete rest, remember to give yourself some love this holiday season, and you can do it with BetterHelp.com, HELP.com/Sean and RJ. That's BetterHelp.com/Sean and RJ.
We get it. We've all heard the phrases. We've all heard people say, just man up. Just handle it yourself. You don't need to talk to somebody. Now, sometimes you do. Sometimes you're out of options. Sometimes you've been trying to do it yourself for so long. Other times, you may just want a little bit of a refresher. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. I've gone through it. Sean's gone through it. We both highly subscribe to therapy. BetterHelp.com/Sean and RJ. Today, get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/Sean and RJ. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp.
This is the exclusive home of Dallas Cowboys football. KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas, Fort Worth. Let's go, Cowboys.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
From our fan studios secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
Indeed, it is the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. My name is Alec Medford, joined by Reginald Atatula and Rigo Mendoza holding things down for you. The Tolo, the Turn It On. Leave it on, listener. We appreciate you so very much for joining us here until 11 o'clock tonight, riding with you into the night. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053. We're also live on Twitch and YouTube, twitch.tv/DallasFanCam, 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. We're about to bring you some Week 13 NFL overreactions. Coming up on the other side, we got to talk about some college football in the College Football Corner. Selection Sunday, we got our Final Four. We'll get into that here on the other side. But Week 13 NFL overreactions. CBS Sports puts out their weekly overreactions for that week. And I think this week the conversations start to get a little bit interesting. After what happened in that 325 game between, I should say, the 49ers and the Eagles.
Yeah, man. If you have any overreactions of your own, text them in, truckwreck.com text line, 877-881-1053, or just let us know if you believe that they are overreactions or not.
Overreactions are fun, at minimum. If they're logical or not, they're least fun.
That's right.
And we like to have fun here.
At the very least, we can be like, whoever wrote this is dumb.
Yeah. And CBS Sports can be prone to that sometimes.
It's very kind of them for allowing us to do that.
Yeah. Jeff Kerr, I do enjoy his pieces.
No, absolutely.
So,
100%.
I'm hoping that this will hold up. And we will start with overreaction or not. The 49ers will win out the rest of this season. And I will go ahead and give you some of the context there as to what lies ahead for the 49ers.
I've got to pull it up as well. They get Seattle at home. They get Arizona on the road. Then they get Baltimore at home. And that's a Monday night game, right? Then they go to Washington, to the nation's capital, to play the Commandos. Then they finish out the season with the Rams at the crib. And, ooh, boy, look, they could. They absolutely could. And the way that they're playing is incredible. I'm going to try and not be a prisoner of the moment, even though I do believe, and I have believed that this is a really good football team, particularly when healthy. I looked up and I was like, all right, they've got a couple of in-division foes that can get you, especially like the Arizona's playing like this really fun brand of basketball. Good God. Sorry, I'm also watching the in-season tournament at the same time, so I apologize for that brain fart. However, Arizona, the Cardinals are playing a fun brand of football, and it seems like Kyler, they might need to consider the idea that, hey, you do have your quarterback now that you have him in a situation where you don't have him paired with Cliff Kingsbury and all of the issues that he brought as a primary play caller. And so I kind of like what they're doing there. I don't know that they have enough talent to be able to knock off the Niners, but I think that could be interesting. And then you feed that into a game on Christmas Day against the Baltimore Ravens, who at one point in this year, right, we've kind of bounced around the teams that we view as like the number one overall team in the league right now. The Ravens have held that in my mind at one point, and the Niners have held that as well. And I think that kind of matchup will leave this open to interpretation. I lean towards they probably could, although I feel like that's just a little bit too far to. I think it's a little bit too far to say. I think it's an overreaction, but only just slight. I think that there's a couple of teams that maybe could give them a run.
And that's 5 games. So if we do some quick math, they are on a 4-game winning streak. That would have been 9 wins in a row, which is incredibly hard to do in the NFL.
I don't know. You remember that Steelers team from like 2 years ago that went 11-0, even though they weren't even good at football?
Exactly. Yeah, it absolutely happens. To which I say this isn't totally crazy. I don't think this is hyperbole, but I'm going to go and say it is, at least for the moment, an overreaction. Kind of taking your stance there, because I don't know. I just feel like this, even though it is in Santa Clara, I feel like this matchup, this rematch with the Seahawks could be a little bit more competitive this time around. I don't know if the 49ers lose it, but I
don't know that Seattle has enough defense.
I don't think they do, but I feel like if they can play that brand of football they played against the Cowboys, they can at least keep it close on the offensive side of the ball, and it could be one of those, like, 1 touchdown or even 10-point games that feels close until midway in the fourth quarter. And then that Ravens game. I think the Ravens are still one of the best teams in football, and uncommon opponent there. I think they could give them a run for their money.
Yeah.
So I think it's very possible, but I think there is probably one loss sprinkled in there, and it could be between 2 teams for me. The next overreaction or not.
Before we move, actually no, let's go on. I think you're good. There's some folks that are saying that's not an overreaction. They believe that the Niners are in fact going to win this thing out.
Okay.
Shout out to Greg on the YouTube.
Overreaction or not, Brock Purdy is the NFL MVP.
Overreaction as hell. Now the one thing that makes this a little tough is that this is firmly a quarterback award.
Yep.
And so we will bend over backwards to find a way to keep it a quarterback award, even though he probably has a more fitting, a more deserving candidate on his very own team, and his name is Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
But then that's just like people's brains do not stretch that way. And I mean, you did it earlier in the day where, you said the Niners, and then you went immediately to Brock Purdy, even though like I do not believe he's the engine that runs this thing, even though he's doing what he's supposed to do and he's doing it very well. With that being the case, like, Can we start talking about the Dak Prescott thing here? Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He has been playing by metrics incredibly. Now the tough thing about it is that you look at what the odds are, and he is the odds-on favorite at this moment. But nobody really has like a great nobody has a very good stance on this is going to be the MVP winner right now, and so. Yeah. He's still in there, but no, I think that feels like an overreaction. And I guess the idea is like they will continue winning, and maybe that'll hand it to him. But I kind of like the idea of, hey, who's on track to get 2,000 yards receiving? Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
like that. The opportunity to maybe do something historic can maybe bring some voters in a way where we might get something fun there as well.
Yeah, and to your point about Brock Purdy, I'm not a Brock Purdy stan by any means, and trust me, I believe that he is overrated. It's just incredible to me that he continues to do his job perfectly pretty much week in and week out.
I mean, is it that over? Remember when Jimmy Garoppolo was doing his job over there and people were like, why is he good? I don't know. He's a winner.
Yeah.
Look, man, this Kyle Shanahan thing, at least when it comes to offensive play calling, it fits in if you can do certain things.
Yeah.
And he's better. He's much better Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, it's just, I think we have seen in the past where quarterbacks have been able to screw up the Kyle Shanahan method.
Oh, wow. Why are you doing that to Trey Lance? It's very mean to you. It's very mean of you.
I'm sorry. Shout out Cowboys legend Trey Lance. There you go. But I will have the Dak Prescott conversation, though, because like you can compare the stats. Brock Purdy, 70% completion, 3,185 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 116 passer rating. I mean, those are pretty good stats on paper, but Dak Prescott's ranking in all those stats: passing touchdowns first, passing touchdown to interception ratio first, passer rating second, wins tied second, completion percentage tied for second. Like Dak Prescott's having an equally as impressive year, and he's being asked to do a little bit more for my money. So yeah, I'd have that conversation. But if you want to really get fun with it, Give me a skill position player that isn't a quarterback. I'm okay with the Christian McCaffrey conversation. I am more than okay with the Tyreek Hill conversation.
Yeah, the tough part about it is, I guess this is where it's tough, and I have to revert back to the idea that maybe this isn't an overreaction is, okay, but they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's probably some of the most compelling cases that we've had in a while to go non-quarterback. However, I think that, muscle memory might reign true in some of these instances. So, I don't know. You want to move this along?
Yeah, let's move along to the Philadelphia Eagles overreaction or not. The Eagles will lose the NFC East.
Not overreaction. It's not overreaction. Obviously, that starts with Sunday, making sure that the Cowboys win against the Eagles. But remember that the first time these teams met, that was a close game. They simply did not finish, and I think there is something to be said. And again, we're going to get back to the Seahawks are just an okay team or what have you, right? They were playing very good football on that day, and there is something to be said, right? And I guess moral victory is in a weird way comes into play, even though you won that game. They did not play great, this Cowboys team. The defense was not good. They were undisciplined in a lot of ways. They did that thing that kind of is very narrative driven. It's very annoying, where they found a way to win. And I feel like that is something that is shifted over the course of the season. It feels like there's a distinction when it comes to the Cowboys in this season where it feels like they are better prepared to situationally play football. And I do wonder if that ends up being the distinction and the difference with the common opponent of the Philadelphia Eagles in the second matchup. And then once you get there, right, all bets are off. All bets are off on winning this division for the Cowboys. And so, no, I think that you cannot write this off for the Eagles at this point.
If the Cowboys win next week, both teams will be tied for first in the division with a split in the season series. The division tiebreaker would come into play as the Eagles have 2 games against the Giants left. If both the Eagles and the Cowboys finish 14-3 and 5-1 in the division common games is the next tiebreaker. The Cowboys are 4-1 against common opponents, while the Eagles are 4-2.
Ooh, okay. I like you getting down to the tiebreakers. Appreciate you.
Yeah. So, it's definitely possible. Like they have the keys to this race, and they control their own destiny due to the Philadelphia Eagles. So I don't think it's an overreaction either. Kind of going into today, I was kind of throwing that idea around, and I was like, yeah, I think this is still a really good team that still has the lead right now. So all they really need is just a couple of solid wins. But I think I might have overlooked the head-to-head matchup this Sunday a little bit too much, and I think a Cowboys win here could put them on the right track. I think that is totally in play, and I would love that, personally.
How do you like this from the 682 on the truckroute.com text line? Trent Williams for MVP. I like it. I love what you're doing.
I love it.
Let's get, one of the most important, if not the most important player on a team. Can we get an offensive lineman for MVP? Let's just go ahead and break the mold. Let's do something special.
Yeah.
At least make one of these quarterbacks really earn it if we're going to give it to him. Come on, man.
Yeah, and I've become a really big Trent Williams fan over the past few weeks because he's been doing some podcasts and stuff, and he was talking with Eric Armstead, his teammate, about the battle with cancer, and that is a great. I gotta get the name of the podcast. I got the clip somewhere. Maybe we'll play it 10:20 a.m. on the FM. But some great stories from him. Great dude. I'd love to see that. But let's continue on with overreactions or not. I want to go to this one because this one's really fun, and I think a little bit of the conversation got started at least from people out of this city yesterday. Overreaction or not, Shane Steichen is the coach of the year.
Oh, this is tough. Because I really like what Shane Steichen has done.
Yeah, it's impressive what he's doing with the Indianapolis Colts. They're 7-5.
Yes, but on top of that, right, if you are not watching this team, which I could not blame you for not doing, not one bit, it would be easy for you to look at it and go, 7-5, oh, they lost Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew must be doing something all right. And the answer is no. No, he is not. Gardner Minshew looks like exactly what you anticipated Gardner Minshew looked like. It's just that Shane Steichen is really good at calling an offense.
Yeah.
And it feels like he does not misstep. And with that being the case, right, that is incredible, right? This is an award, the Coach of the Year award is very much about expectations more than anything. Because you realize Mike Tomlin has not won a single Coach of the Year award in his career, right? That seems wild to think about.
That's absurd,
right? And yes, 682, both Philly coordinators have done well, and I would not throw it past you to think about why the Eagles have had some level of slip back, considering that they lost both those coordinators. But yeah, no, Shane Steichen has done really well. And I think you look at the expectation when you look up at what they were anticipated to do, even with Anthony Richardson, then you lose Anthony Richardson and he's been able to keep this on the tracks. That feels like it might not be an overreaction, but I also need to think more about this because I imagine I'm not actually thinking about the other contenders. I'm just thinking about what Shane Steichen has done.
It can't be an overreaction because it's incredible what he's doing. I mean, 7-5 without their rookie first round pick in Anthony Richardson at quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
31-28 overtime win over the Titans yesterday. That was impressive.
Yeah, but also it's the Titans and they kind of.
Yeah,
I forgot about, like, there's Dan Campbell, there's D'Amico Ryans.
Yeah, there's
Mike McDaniel. Like, there's so many good options that Shane Steichen. Okay, this is an overreaction because Shane Steichen is not going to get the love over a Dan Campbell, who, like, their team has been a media darling for multiple years at this point, and they've shown even if they've kind of slowed a little bit. D'Amico Ryans has been the head coach of one of the most fun, young teams for, like the media at large to talk about, because you talk about C.J. Stroud and then the rest of this team, and then the Dolphins have just been putting up all these points up and down, and you could definitely point to Mike McDaniel's impact on that. So I think that those things are going to come up. And then on the text line, people are bringing up other things like Kevin Stefanski, which I don't know that I'd necessarily give you that one. But, I can see other situations. But, yeah, Shane Steichen currently, when it comes to odds, is sitting 5th in odds on Coach of the Year. And, no, there's definitely some other guys that I think would definitely win over him. But it's tough because he has done an incredible job with that team. But, again, I don't blame you for not watching. And if you're not watching, I don't know how much you can, point to that impact of what Shane Steichen. I almost said Sirianni, but that's not who I was trying to talk about.
He comes from the Sirianni tree, so that is all that matters. And look, I want to toot my own horn for a second because I believe I even told you guys back when I used to be in the Cup for this show that I just don't think that Philly team is going to look the same without its coordinators. And specifically, I thought that Shane Steichen was a really good play caller.
Okay, do your victory lap then.
Yeah, I'm taking my victory lap because I totally believe that he was a major cog in that machine.
Yeah, the big thing is for me is that it just seems like he has a knack for calling the right play at the right time.
Yeah.
And like that seems very very mundane, but like that's huge, right?
Yeah.
That is a huge portion of play calling, and he does that really well.
Yeah, what do we get onto a lot for Mike McCarthy here in Dallas? Situational play calling.
Well, I mean, we got on a lot for your man Kellen Moore, who had a hell of a week this week.
Oh, shout out Kellen Moore.
All them 6 points this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, got the win. Shout out the Patriots making all kinds of bad NFL history. The only NFL team since 1938 to lose 3 straight games where they gave up 10 or less.
Gross.
Incredible.
Well, thanks for stopping by the booth, Belichick.
It
was a good time. We appreciate you.
If you're gonna set an example, you may as well set a bad one, Bill, right? That's some NFL overreaction or not for Week 13. Some interesting conversations there, and I'm sure it's not going to slow down because coming up next, we're going to go into the college football corner and talk about these playoffs, Florida State, and more coming up next on the Get Right.
We have you covered, Stars fans, with exclusive content from 2-time Stanley Cup champion Greg Ludwig and NHL reporter Sean Shapiro. It's Spits and
top brands like DeWalt and Craftsman. Visit us in-store or online for more deals you can't beat. Because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. About 11/30 through 12/6. While supplies last, selection varies by location.
Hi, Babe Laufenberg here from my friends at Permapeer Foundation Repair. With the cooling temperatures this winter, Texas soil will be shifting. And when shift happens, call the dirt nerds at Permapeer. The team at Permapeer is trained in geological science. To truly fix a foundation issue, you have to have a complete understanding of the ground you're working on. And the dirt nerds at Permapeer have you covered. Visit permapeer.com. That's Permapeer, PIER.com, and schedule your free foundation evaluation today.
It's a Cowboys Monday, brought to you by Twin Peaks and K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing on 105.3 The Fan.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Frankel & Frankel. Life is unpredictable and accidents happen. Frankel & Frankel are the go-to attorneys for car and truck wrecks in the DFW. And if your loved one have been injured in an accident, contact Frankel & Frankel for a free consultation at truckwreck.com or call 214 or 817-333-3333.
Back here on the Get Right, about to go into the college football corner. Talk about these playoffs and what happened to FSU here in just a moment. Alec Medford and Reginald Atatula with you until 11 o'clock tonight. Coming up on the other side, of course, at 9:40, it's sharing time. That coming up here in about 15 minutes or so. And still a pretty good one. Monday Night Football. It is 28-21 in favor of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Plenty of shenanigans, too.
Yeah, lots of shenanigans. I believe we had a Tyler Boyd interception.
And it was hilarious because it wasn't like he lined up under center or, they handed the ball off to him. No. They did the screen and then he's supposed to pass the ball downfield. Or maybe it was like supposed to be a throwback. And there's a linebacker just sitting in the middle of what was previously the pocket. And Tyler Boyd's like, I could throw it over him. And he did not. Let me tell you, good listener, he did not throw it over him. He threw it right into the number 40, whatever it was, of the linebacker that was sitting there. It looked like he was trying to give him the football. And that is exactly what he did. He gave the ball to the Jaguars. And ultimately now the Jaguars lead by 7, 28-21. That one's fun. We'll keep you up to date with all the things that are happening there. I imagine if you're Jake Brown, you're like, hey, dog, I didn't even throw the interception. Why are you doing it?
Yeah, everyone thought that was going to be me coming into this game, but man, Tyler Boyd looked like me during the annual Turkey Bowl with the boys where, they run that jet sweep and I'm supposed to pass it. I'm like, my buddy that's 6'4" down there, yeah, I'm going to throw it over you.
Yeah, this is my favorite thing about the trick play in football, though, is if there's ever a play call that's like, hey, a non-quarterback is going to throw the football. Just understand the ball is getting thrown, right? Is that guy triple covered? Doesn't matter. I'm throwing the football.
Yep.
Right? Am I being hit as I'm throwing? No, doesn't matter. I'm throwing the football, right? Because how many times do I get a chance to throw the football? Never. If this play don't work, you're not going to call it again. I got to get this football off. And so he's going to throw that football, and that he did, just for an interception.
The play calls for me to throw the ball, and I am going to do just that.
Look, I came to throw the football, and I'm going to make it happen.
So... speaking of football, let's talk about the college variety because I don't know if you, didn't check it out yesterday. Maybe you're too busy having fun with us at Swinging for a Cause. Shout out Jared Sandler. And you didn't realize that yesterday was Selection Sunday. And we have our college football playoff and not without the usual controversy as number 1, Michigan, number 2, the Washington Huskies, number 3, Hook 'em Horns, Texas. The University of Texas gets in. And then number 4, the Alabama Crimson Tide make it in. Rounding out your top 4, you will have the matchup of Michigan and Alabama, which should be very fun as Alabama seems to already be winning that mental battle. And then you will have the Washington Huskies and the Texas Longhorns going at it in the 2-3 matchup. Meaning Florida State got left out.
Yeah, man. And we were talking about this a little bit in crosstalk with the G-Bag Nation before the Cowboys Hour started. But I understand why folks are mad. Because if we are going to take this from the completely serious place, which I think a lot of people operate with college football, and understandably so, there's a lot of folks for whom this matters in a great deal. And so I want to treat it with that level of care. From a very serious place, you can absolutely look at the committee and you go, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Right? Like, this violates a lot of the things that you have told us that you seem to value, right? Even if you look at it, right? You look at the fact that this was a team that was ranked higher, and when you talk about the strength of schedule or strength of their record, like ESPN Analytics does this, they still rank higher. They played a better team when it comes down to the finishing, or they lost their losses, or there wasn't a loss, right? Even this game that they won at the very end against Louisville in the ACC championship is it's a good team that they lost to, or that they beat, and they beat handily. They beat them the way that they were supposed to, while also on their third quarterback, right? Because not only did they lose Jordan Travis, the Tate Rodemaker, who is their second string quarterback, was in concussion protocol, and they still were able to handle this with their defense, right? The problem is there's always been a stipulation, apparently, in the college football playoff that they could consider who is not playing. But that's kind of ridiculous because, in theory, we all view this is supposed to be some level of meritocracy. And ultimately, if what you're telling me now is this the best team, or who you're deeming the best team, and how are you deeming that if you're not considering this record, right? What are you doing to determine that? Because it's not always worked like this. And the problem that I have with that is, especially as I started to explain that, we start talking about best team, but then there's been instances where we've talked about record and who has, who has losses, who's been champion of their conference. And the point that I ultimately always want to make about this is, man, they're never going to get this right in the way that you want this to get. And you want them to get this right, because that's not really the objective per se. And the reason why I say that is they tell us any old thing. Like, over the 10 years of doing this college football playoff thing, they have told us various different reasons as to why they have made their rankings, their final rankings. Talk less of the rankings that they do during the course of the season. And it's just any different reason that particularly serves the purposes that they're trying to get to in that moment. And with that being the case, it's not going to make you feel any better, because for Florida State, you are still excluded from this thing while having a completely winning season. And, being able to overcome the biggest adversity of losing your quarterback. But the problem is, like, this is never made to get you, like, the perfect answer, because that's not how the system works. And the tough part about it is we still keep looking to the system for something that it's not designed to do. And that's my biggest thing about it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And it's hard for me, because this is coming from the stance of someone who tends to cheer on a certain Christian university that happens to reside in Texas. And saw what happened in the national.
Baylor?
Yeah. Big Baylor fan. Sick 'em.
Sure. Oh, you meant Houston Baptist. I got it. My bad.
Yeah, HBU. TCU kind of set the mold here, and I feel like, at least for the foreseeable future, this is the path that we're gonna get. This is the blueprint that we're gonna get. It's gonna be best team more times than not. And let's talk about it from the competitive and the entertainment value standpoint. They got it right. Like, in my mind, they got that aspect right. But most deserving, absolutely not. I mean, Florida State put together an incredible body of work. And if you want to talk about the quarterback play, and the question mark that is, if you look at the past 3 games of quarterback play from Florida State versus Michigan, Florida State quarterbacks have outplayed J.J. McCarthy in the past 3 games, scoring more touchdowns, throwing more passing yards. I don't think that should have been as big of a worry as it was made to be. But look, I totally get it from the committee's standpoint, just because they don't want another TCU happening. And even reading some of the quotes that Heather Dinich put out as she was out there in Grapevine, pretty much in the selection room.
That's right.
As this was all going down yesterday, and she said, she got a quote from one of the committee members saying, quote, "All of us had the emotional tie to FSU, like, holy bleep, this is really going to suck to do this." And another one saying, "We talked about that over and over, and we just kept coming back to, are they good enough to win with what they have right now, a national championship?" And it kept coming back to, we don't think they could. And I get the thought process, but it is just so hard for me to look at an undefeated Power 5 team that won their championship respectively and say that team is not worthy of being named one of the top 4 teams in the country. And I think the best way to look at it, I think Zach Wolchuk had a great point about it during Crosstalk, of if you wanted to make that argument that when Jordan Travis went down, this team was never going to be worthy, of making a championship, just don't put them in the top 4 period after that, because then you have a little bit less, at least at this stage of the season, you have a little bit less pushback.
Well, one thing you have to remember is that, and they tell you this every week, right? Those weekly rankings, they redo them every week. So in theory, this is an entirely different look at it.
Yeah.
And this is why this is why my mental outlook, and I don't have the energy to argue about it, because my mental outlook on college football is like, oh no, I know what I'm here for. And like, honestly, the entire existence, the entire, platform of college football is built on nonsense. Like, all of this is a lot of nonsense, man. Like, the very basics of this is we're doing this thing and we are not paying the labor force that we're doing this with, right? Like, this is all largely nonsense. And I say this as somebody who very much enjoys the nonsense, that we then try and make it very serious on the back end, and then we're mad then when it does not compute. Like, this is not really how this thing is built to work. And so, I have a hard time fighting about it. Apparently, the state of Florida doesn't.
That's true.
Yeah, their senator Rick Scott is claiming that there's a lot of economic opportunity that's been taken away by not putting Florida State in the college football playoff. So they're trying to go through some level of legal means to try and I'm just like, this is almost more college football of it is like treating things that are not this serious as though they are wildly serious. And so, like, it's tough. It really is tough for Florida State, and I hate that for them, and particularly for the guys, because I know Jordan Travis got on, I believe, on social media and said something like, I wish I had gotten hurt earlier in the season. And that's an asinine thing for a player to have to think because of the circumstances, right? And so, like, I find it to be entirely ridiculous all the way around. But this is something that we've come to expect. And this is why when they institute the college football playoff, I was like, look, man, it's not going to make you happy, right? It's just going to shift the place where your upset is going to go. And so next year they're going to get 12 teams. And I imagine you're not going to get this when it comes to conference champions. But you'll find another place for this to get annoying because, again, the whole apparatus is based on nonsense.
It absolutely is, and even when they do expand, there's still going to be people and still going to be situations where you can find a way to be upset, and there is going to be that odd man out, the man that was missing in that situation. And look, 817, you can call me a dumbass all you want. I am a TCU fan. I get that they won against Michigan. You saw what happened in that national championship against Georgia, and it is asinine to say that the committee did not want to see that happen again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I think that the idea that, like, you're predicting forward is, like, that defeats the whole purpose of, like, putting up a tournament, right? If you're trying to do the predictive thing, that's not how the NCAA tournament is built. But you've kind of coalesced all this power into the college football playoff and giving them the power to do that. Now, real quick before we go, from the 972, they're talking about, like, Florida and State needed to put up style points against Louisville, and they didn't. You're saying they barely won. They had a defensive clinic in that game.
Yeah.
Right? Louisville is not a team to be completely cast aside. And I think this is also another thing in college football is, like, we can't make this only be about the offensive points. Like, defense matters as well, and it feels like that is completely neglected in the way that this goes, right? But yeah, no, there's a lot of things that you could do when you talk about this in a very serious manner. And the thing that my ultimate point, and I know I've already kind of circled back on this, is just this is the way that you're ultimately gonna, maybe it's defeatist, but this is the way that this is gonna fail you every time. And I hate that it failed in this very particular way, but I'm not I don't know, I'm not shocked by it.
Yeah, it was not surprising to me at all. It was kind of exhilarating in the moment watching it here in the studio with the fan phenom Blake Elliott. It was just like, oh wow, they actually did it. That's incredible. But I am, as much like I'm not the biggest Texas fan on record, I am excited to see what the Longhorns can do.
Yeah, it will be interesting that you get a Texas team that is looking the most serious that I've seen Texas in at the very least a decade.
Yeah.
And they get an interesting matchup in Washington, who has looked gettable in certain ways, but they consistently showed up and done what they need to do. And this is a possibility where you can maybe get in a shootout against this team because Washington's got all the offense with 3 Sunday players as wide receivers. And Texas seems like they could be able to dial that up while also having really good defensive linemen up the middle that can maybe create pressure for Heisman finalist Michael Penix. We didn't even talk about the Heisman finalists. And so, no, I think that'll be an interesting game. We'll have more time obviously, to talk about all of bowl season that's coming up. And I guess real quick before we go, I do want to highlight the Heisman finalists. You do have Michael Penix Jr., quarterback of Washington. You have Jaden Daniels, quarterback at LSU, who has been phenomenal. And honestly, if he had any sort of defense, you would see him a little bit more prominently featured. Bo Nix at Oregon, who is a 75-year-old quarterback. Shout out to that man. And then finally, the young man from Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. I want to put respectfully, I say that entirely respectfully.
Must have been the win.
MHJ is what I will call him from now on because I'm afraid of that man and his father.
That's going to be a great drop. And we actually do have a great game going on in Monday Night Football, as it looks like the Bengals have scored to put themselves within one, pending the extra point, 28-27 as it stands right now. A quarterback sneak after a failed Joe Mixon dive up the middle. But coming up next on the Get Right, it's sharing time next.
We're excited to team up with the world champion Texas Rangers in support of this year's Rangers Toy Drive Thursday afternoon, December 7th from 4 to 7 at Globe Life Field.
trying to do it yourself for so long. Other times, you may just want a little bit of a refresher. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. I've gone through it. Sean's gone through it. We both highly subscribe to therapy. BetterHelp.com/Sean and RJ. Today, get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/Sean and RJ. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp.
Hey there, football fans. I'm Brian Baldinger, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to the Best Football Show, a podcast that's an exhilarating journey to the world of the National Football League. Join me each weekday, breaking down those spine-tingling moments, dissecting top players, and offering my unique perspective. Prepare to get smarter about the game we all love with every episode of the Best Football Show, where the game comes to life. Huddle up with me for a football experience like no other. Follow the Best Football Show on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast.
We had a great run with all of our Buffalo Wild Wings, and now the challenge is up to you, Bedford, because Friday we will be at the Buffalo Wild Wings 1933 Airport Freeway for the Friday Football Feast.
And every week, Miller Lite's giving away some awesome prizes, plus Cowboys tickets, 10 to 2. It's always a blast. We'll see you there.
This segment of the Get Red is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Classic Chevrolet is leading the way to finish the year number 1 in America. They're racing hard with year-end savings on over 400 Silverados. Shop them all at ClassicChevrolet.com. This is Texas. This is Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads and relax and enjoy the difference.
Back here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan, about to get into some sharing time, and we will reset your headlines on the other side to open up the third and final hour of our program here tonight. The truckrick.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved in the conversation. Twitch and YouTube as well, twitch.tv/Dallas FanCam or 105.3 The Fan on YouTube. But I believe it is time for sharing time. And Reggie, would you like to start us off?
Sure. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be very transparent. You mentioned sharing time, and I was like, oh, man, do I have something? And I mean, like, obviously, it's just like, what's happening with you or what you've been thinking on. And so, obviously, I will have something. But I was like, is this something that's great to bring to the segment? So you let me know. 877-881-1053. But earlier today, I read a really interesting piece from a friend of the program, Joel Anderson of Slate.
Yeah.
And he obviously works at Slate, does the Hang Up and Listen podcast, and also, has done the Slow Burn podcast for a few seasons. The Tupac murder, talking about Clarence Thomas. And so he's done some really interesting, I believe LA riots as well, if I remember correctly. Yes. And so he's done some really interesting stuff, but also prior to working at Slate, he wrote for ESPN as a college football writer, senior college football writer for a few years. And this was right in the heart of the time where we really got ESPN got real heavy on the stick to sports.
Yeah.
And he wrote an interesting piece that kind of within that framework talks about how ESPN is really just, we've always viewed it as if it's too big to fail, right? Like it's the too big to fail, and really it's succumbing just in a slower and maybe a different way to what we're seeing from a lot of media. And so we're seeing that, their growth is being, it's being diminished. And now we're talking about like the fiscal growth, and now we're getting to like the business metrics of this, which is it's a little heady. I understand that, but they're still making money. However, like with all of these deals and everything, but you're seeing the ways in which ESPN has now contorted themselves in order to try and keep making money. And so ESPN, he ultimately is kind of surmising, ESPN is not coming from like necessarily a moral place, but it's just kind of a place of, we got to get this money. And so anything's necessary. And like that sounds like it's not novel. And I guess in a way it's not, but you see the ways in which like they've really coalesced around a Pat McAfee, who they've given a lot of leeway to Pat McAfee. He's on a lot of stuff. They cuss on air, right? Like Disney, a Disney owned franchise, the mouse, all those things. He can cuss on air if he needs to. And so like that feels like a very far departure from, hey, don't tweet nothing about nothing political, that might set people off, right? But however, you look at it, and this is a company that their revenue is not increasing in the ways in which they wanted to, and so that kind of shapes the way that this goes. It was a really interesting piece on Slate about ESPN and the ways, I think it really is almost scary for media in general, because We looked at, local newspapers and the ways that those have kind of faded in trying to find a way to be profitable, because ultimately the job isn't necessarily just to make money, but to be profitable in a way that can grow so that, shareholders or whatever can get some level of equity out of it.
Yeah.
But it's like ESPN seemed like, it's the, the big four letters, the mothership, all those things, the Death Star, whatever you want to call it. They, in a certain way, are also susceptible to all of these things. And so with that being the case, it's kind of crazy to think, oh no, this entire media thing is on a kind of a topsy-turvy situation, which is great for someone who is budding in their career in media, right? And for the 972 who says Disney is propping up ESPN. Disney has $14.2 billion in cash reserves. Actually, ESPN is propping up Disney. Like when you talk about even for the first time in what feels like forever in 2022, Disney opened up their financials for ESPN, and I think it's like $2.3 billion. Let me go back to the piece to be able to, generate that. But when you talk about Disney's entire entertainment, it was like $2.1 billion in revenue. And so ESPN is still making more money than Disney as a whole, or at least their entertainment division in that way. However, the problem, and this is the tough part about when we talk about like the economics of all this stuff, is like when some of these companies are like, we're not making money. Oh, no. They're making money. They're not making money as fast as they would want to, because it's not about necessarily profit. It's about growth year over year. And so are we making this percent more money than we made last year ends up being the question. So that's the weird thing with ESPN. It's still big enough in that way where they're not like straight up losing money. They're just not seeing the growth. However, that does still track with the idea of this thing is not going to live forever, right? All of this has a half-life or whatever the right word, shelf life or whatever. And so with that being the case, that was kind of a thing that made me, stop and say, today. And it's a little bit more heady and it's a little bit more niche, but I hope that you could appreciate that.
I appreciate it because, it's not something that you really think of when you think of the worldwide leader. You think of this juggernaut that is going to exist and send ripples through this industry and this world that we, kind of engorge ourselves in the world of sports. We think it's going to exist forever just because it has, and you kind of assume it to continue. But it is, I love how you brought up the Pat McAfee thing and just like the stance of where they were even just a few short years ago about, it's two totally different sides of the coin. And it's almost like, to me, in a weird way, if this makes any sense, I hope it does, it feels like they're trying to get ahead of the curve. But to me, in my eyes at least, they're just a little bit behind the coin, because Pat McAfee and everything really took off in the past, year or two. And it felt like they were getting to a place where you were seeing all the ESPN layoffs and everything. And you were starting to see kind of a bland product. And they said, what can we do? How about we literally just go take the most popular thing in the media world right now and make it ours and allow them to exist in themselves the way that they know how to, which is completely against everything we believe in. But hey, it's going to get ratings and it's going to make us money.
Well, it's funny because you think that, but ultimately all these like TV properties, when you talk about McAfee or the ways in which Stephen A. Smith does 17 jobs, right? All those pale in comparison to what actually makes the money here for this organization, which is sports rights, right? As TV becomes less and less must watch and people are cord cutting or whatever and switching to streaming more compared to linear television, the thing that still has staying power is sports rights. And so it's why John Skipper, who used to be the head man at ESPN, talks about the fact that he thinks ESPN needs to go back and make sure that they retain NBA rights. Like rights deals are what props this thing up, because that's the one thing that people like, sports rights, right? That's one thing that people will tune in for consistently, right? In a big way. And so that's funny because we talk about like we harp so much on the Pat McAfee's and those things, but ultimately it's like, hey man, where's the game, right? Where is Monday Night Football? ESPN, all right, cool. It's not necessarily where's Pat McAfee per se.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. That's an interesting piece that I am excited to look into myself. And my real quick contribution to this segment, it kind of goes off of what we were talking about with Carter Freeman before the show. We were talking about how the whole trailer release for GTA 6 came out and happened, and I'm just really sad because I feel like the video game industry is kind of watered down. and it's lost its excitement. I don't think it's just a growing up thing for me because I still very much enjoy in my little free time playing some video games, whatever it may be. I just feel like there aren't as many marquee things that are exciting anymore. Like GTA 6, it took literally a decade of build up and hype for this game, and it's made me so excited, but there's nothing else outside of that has me really going like Call of Duty used to, like MLB The Show used to, like Madden used to. You know, it feels like the industry has just kind of lost its sparkle for some reason.
Is NCAA trying to get you hype?
No, because I don't think it's going to happen. The way that the players are advocating for themselves to get more than the like $500 that they were told they would be given, you know, for their NIL usage there. So no, I don't think that will do it for me either. I don't know.
How much do you venture out into like the other game space? Because I think one of the things also is we talk about this money-making situation that also affects like the gaming industry, and that I think it's changed a lot of the ways in which particularly sports games are just kind of churned out every year without necessarily giving you anything. Like there's not really places for them to innovate there. So it just kind of ends up being the same game in order to extract more money out of you, as opposed to some of the gaming spaces, which again will still kind of fall into some of the other entertainment spaces. Like we're seeing in the movies where there's less originality, but there's still original stuff in there. It just now takes more searching and diving and trying to find those things, as opposed to where it felt like at the very least it was more ever present in the past.
And I like to think that I do venture out a little bit. I mean, like I grew up on a ton of different games. Like I played the different like Hearthstone card games, like the skill-based games. I played the World of Warcrafts. I played the Overwatches. You know, I've played a ton of different things, and some of those still hold their value and their substance to me. It's just some of them have either gotten really expensive or their subscription services. And like I was even telling Rigo during a break earlier, like I used to be so addicted to Fortnite in high school, and I've not played in probably 2 or 3 years. Like these things.
Welcome to getting older, Bubba.
Yeah, I don't think it's that, because I am a dork. I'm a total dork. I love video games.
You know me.
It just feels very like even Lady T on Twitch saying RPGs nowadays too, very little originality. It does feel like everyone's kind of cutting from the same cloth. So I don't know. I don't get as excited, and as a true to heart dork and nerd, you know, it's kind of sad for me. I miss, you know, when my dad's like, hey, what do you want for Christmas? It's a video game. It's not that anymore. It's like, give me some socks, man.
Hey, man,
just
look.
want some clean laundry.
I hear you. However, a brand new pair of socks will do something, brother.
Trust me, I'm wearing a
brand new pair of socks, brand new pair of drawers. Look, it's one of the
great.
it's one of the cheapest ways to make yourself feel like a king.
Absolutely.
Right? So, you know, just PSA.
Almost haircut levels, where like a good cut can, you know, make you feel like a new man. A small change to the outfit, just something new. It's like, yeah, I'm him.
Real quick before we go to break, and I know we have to do it real quick, but an injured Jaguars quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, was helped to the locker room. We'll give you more about that on the other side of the break.
Text away your thoughts to the guys right now on the truckwreck.com fan text line at 877-881-1053. This is DFW Sports Station 105.3 The Fan.
Winter may seem like a strange time to
doesn't want you to know, including the 5 ways to get rid of your timeshare. Call now and get this timeshare cancellation guide absolutely free.
Call 800-330-2929. That's 800-330-2929. 800-330-2929.
Right now, Window Nation is offering you 50% off all window styles. Plus, you could get 0% interest for 5 years. It's time to get rid of those drafty windows. Call 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com to get started.
Sean Sharif here with my new favorite barbecue spot. It's Cross Buck Barbecue. Tolos, the best burnt ends that I've ever had in my entire life. It is brisket candy. And don't forget the black molasses pork butt. Try it yourself and tell them Sean for the Fan sent you to Cross Buck.
This is the exclusive home of Dallas Cowboys football. KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas, Fort Worth. Let's go, Cowboys.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
From our fan studio secured by DFWsecurity.com, it's time for the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan.
It's the final hour of the Get Right here on 105.3 The Fan. My name is Alec Medford, joined by Reginald Atatula.
What up, though?
Rigo Mendoza holding things down for you, the Tolo, the Turn It On, Leave It On listener. Appreciate you so very much for joining us here on The Fan. Your home of America's team and the World Series champion, Texas Rangers.
That's right.
Shout out to Jared Sandler for an awesome night yesterday at Globe Life Field for his Swinging for a Cause event. So many incredible people showing up, so many incredible people dropping some money for a fantastic cause. Great to see everybody out there and hang out with everybody who got to show up. But we're going to get to your headlines in just a moment, reset some of the biggest things, including something major out of this Monday Night Football game. The truckwreck.com text line is 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053 to get involved with the conversation. AM on the FM coming up on the other side. But let's go ahead and get into these headlines as we got some not so great news out of Monday Night Football, where a certain quarterback with luscious flowing locks, Trevor Lawrence, is down and presumably with the time of the game out.
Yeah, Jacksonville Jaguars PR has made it clear that he left the game with a ankle injury and that he's questionable to return. However, we are under 2 minutes at this point. Have we reached a 2-minute warning at this one? I know we're under 3 minutes at the very least in the fourth quarter of this game. And Cameron Wolf of NFL Network also reported that Trevor Lawrence just came back into the Jacksonville Jaguars X-ray room. I believe that was about 5 minutes ago. Said he was being helped in by 2 trainers, not putting any apparent weight on his leg/ankle. So yeah, it was wild because if you see the video from the game where he is walking with the help of a trainer on either side of him helping him up, and he's not applying weight to that ankle, you think, why is he not on a cart? But no, he walks his way all the way back down the tunnel and there to the locker room. We haven't gotten any further updates, I don't think, just yet on what the result of the x-rays are. We'll let you know that as soon as we can. But yeah, it's CJ Beathard on the field for the Jaguars, and now he has to try and lead the Jags down the field in less than 2.5 minutes because the Bengals got a field goal, made it 31-28, and like I said, about 2:15 now left in this game. CJ Beathard has to take them about 50 yards down the field?
Yeah, and he almost just ruined that all in one play because he fumbled at the end of a run up the middle, and luckily it was recovered by a teammate. So shout out CJ Beathard. I didn't even know that he was still in the league. So
me neither.
That was news to me. That's a great headline. CJ Beathard, professional bag getter. I am impressed. So there's your update for Monday Night Football. We will keep you up to date as this one will go final here in about 2 minutes or so. But a game that did go final that did not go in favor of the good guys. The Dallas Stars took on the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they got blanked 4-0 on the road.
Yeah. That's not the kind of result that you want, especially after putting up an 8-1 final against that same Lightning team here on Saturday. And I guess maybe it's some level of get back for the Lightning, but that's really unfortunate. Takes your Dallas Stars to 14-6-3. Good for second in the Central. How have you felt about this, the way that the Stars have been playing of late, Medford?
For the most part, it's been good. I mean, what I've gotten to watch of the Stars, it's been some pretty good hockey. And one thing that I've taken away from this season so far is this team could have a lot more losses on this record if their penalty kill wasn't so good. So there has been some really good things, and that's something that exactly hasn't impressed me the past few years. So I've seen some great. Obviously, you mentioned the 8 points that the 8 points that they put up in the last game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. They can score, boy, and they've been playing relatively good defense. It's just against some of these like middle of the road teams, haven't been exactly impressive. Like the Calgary Flames getting to them a couple times here early, something I did not have on my early season bingo card. So, it feels like these DFW teams have a knack for giving it up against some not so good teams, which is not fun. But for the most part, I can't hate what I've seen because especially that first, 2-week stretch of the season, it felt like the Stars were the best team in hockey. So I've been impressed so far. It's just they need to start winning against these 500 to below average teams.
Yeah. As we were talking about the Monday Night Football game and Trevor Lawrence having an ankle injury that they've taken him to get x-rayed for, from the truckwreck.com text line, the 972 says best position in sports is backup quarterback. You stay out the way and hope the starter doesn't get hurt. That feels like that's kind of been I don't want to say different necessarily this year because football ends up being, the car crash sport that does, it really does tax the bodies of its players. It feels like there's been a lot of quarterbacks this year that have taken, some knocks. Like even just this week, we saw Derek Carr leave the game for the Saints yesterday. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was a backup who was left after, Deshaun Watson has been out for some time. Obviously, Joe Burrow has also, missed time or is now basically done. We talk about Aaron Rodgers and the ways that we have been waiting for him to try and make his way back. Anthony Richardson is another one of those that we obviously talk about. So, it feels like Kirk Cousins. I mean, how many more, do we need to throw up here? Daniel Jones.
It's ridiculous.
I guess Kenny Pickett also got hurt.
Yeah.
He'll miss some time this week, in the next few weeks. I think Mitchell Trubisky will have to start. Like, it seems like there's been a decent rash of quarterback injuries, and I don't think they've necessarily been the marquees for the league, and I think that kind of has saved them a little bit. But even then, like it really does hurt the product. I remember the year in which I always forget the actual year, but there was a time where it felt like all of the good quarterbacks that you would typically market your games on were injured. And that's when we got real staunch on no, you can't touch these quarterbacks. I don't care that was a good sack. We're still throwing the flag on you because the safety of the quarterback was not simply a player safety issue. It ended up being like a marketing issue. It ended up being a quality of play issue. And I wonder if this will cause some level of knee-jerk reaction as well. And not to say necessarily that it would be knee-jerk it kind of has some connotations that I don't feel great about saying, but I do understand where you would be coming from because, again, like you're trying to protect the best interest of the product.
Yeah, and, as much as we disagree and as much as we don't like some of these quarterback protective and friendly enforcements that have come into the game over the past few years, this is the exact reason why they exist. So, as much as I personally disagree, I get it. It's kind of like what we were going back to with the college football playoff conversation. It's like, you might not agree with the method to the madness, but it all comes down to entertainment value and money. So, yeah, that's why these things exist. But at the same time, as you call it and perfectly describe it, the car crash sport, these things just happen. You saw it with Aaron Rodgers. He's under duress, not a dirty hit by any means, and, snaps his Achilles week 1. That stuff happens. Daniel Jones was just like stepping up in the pocket or might have been a drop back when he tore his ACL, like non-contact. These things happened. Hello, MetLife Stadium being one of the worst fields for play in the National Football League. But yeah, it sucks that these things are happening. We had Kenny Pickett this week. Earlier this week, I should say, and now possibly Trevor Lawrence. So not good for this season's outlook on starting quarterback health, to say the least. Continuing on with your headlines here on 105.3 The Fan, really not a whole lot going on in the world of sports. But if you did miss it, hey, Shaq Leonard's not a Cowboy.
Yeah, he gave us after the meetings, what was that? Was that Tuesday and Wednesday or Wednesday and Thursday? It was a couple of days in the middle of the week last week.
I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday.
And yes, that sounds right. And so he let everybody know that he would make his decision by the weekend. It ultimately comes on Monday, and maybe he let the Eagles know ahead of Monday, but we found out earlier today that he had signed a 1-year deal. We have not found out the details of that deal to play linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's unfortunate. It would have added a much needed depth and some veteran play to your linebacker room that has managed well due to a couple of injuries that you sustained in Leighton Vander Esch and DeMarvion Overshown. Yeah. But it would have been really helpful, especially in like run heavy situations, to have someone spell Marquise Bell, who has done as well as you can expect, a safety stepping into the linebacker spot to do getting downhill and filling gaps. But can you imagine having Shaquille Leonard being able to do that, which is more of his forte? Unfortunately, that is not in your ministry, I guess to say, for the Cowboys fans. He will be playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a big need at linebacker, and it was really exposed even more so against the Niners yesterday.
Yeah, it was not great for the Eagles yesterday in terms of the linebacker play, but in terms of Shaquille Leonard's impact on a potential impact here with the Cowboys and what could have been, I went back and forth about it last week with Nate Newton, who was just totally against the idea because after the OBJ situation, he was kind of just like sticker shocked by the whole, a big name that comes available late in the season that, happens to be in an area that you could use some help on this team. But he was saying, look, this team is gelling so well. Like the vibe in the locker room seems to be kind of at the highest point that it's really been in Mike McCarthy's tenure, for his money and for my money, to which I agree. And the level of play that you've gotten out of a Marquise Bell has been impressive. Mm-hmm. And it's just the one point that I brought up to counter was, man, when Marquise Bell went down a couple weeks ago, my heart stopped.
Yeah. And I mean, Rashaan Evans has come in and given you some time. I know that you've seen one of the, I guess, issues, for lack of a better term, with Rashaan Evans is that you get him in coverage, and that's not
that was a field day.
It's not his best place to be. But I imagine that you wouldn't have had much better situation with Shaquille Leonard, as coverage isn't necessarily his forte either. But you do have some options to try and spell you in those instances. I think the Cowboys need to be given some level of credit for the way that they built this roster. And also, I think more importantly, Mike McCarthy needs to be given some credit for the ways in which he's been very in tune with how to keep his guys going.
Yeah.
You realize, and we talked about this, the Seahawks game capped a 3 games in 12 days stretch.
Which is insane.
They made it through that pretty well, all things considered, right? Like, the injury report going through that has been all on the up and up. And to the point where Peyton Hendershot is now reaching the end of his 21-day practice window, coming back from injured reserve. And so the Cowboys are now on the clock to decide if they want to reinstate him from the IR. If they do not, he will be done for the rest of the year. He will not be eligible to return in the 2023 season. Peyton Hendershot, how much are you interested in seeing him play more? Because it feels like Jake Ferguson has firmly grabbed the tight end role for your Dallas Cowboys, and obviously you can get some help from the likes of Sean McEwen and whatever, and obviously Luke Schoonmaker has also seemed to come on a little bit stronger, at least, because, I mean, you had some drops, you had some instances where you were like, oh man, what are we getting here? Seems to have kind of started leveling out a little bit for him. How interested are you in the return of Peyton Hendershot?
It's nothing against him. I'm really not interested, just because the level of play that you have gotten from the tight end position thus far. It's just because, for me, you already have issues in terms of depth at other positions, like we just talked about, linebacker and whatever. You're going to have to make a corresponding move to put him on the active roster. I just don't know where you fit him because you don't get great special teams value out of him. He's not the strongest guy on the field. Sean McEwen's a great special teams guy. I don't know where I put him. So it's nothing against him. I think it's just because you mentioned it. Jake Ferguson has absolutely stepped up. And I hate that I was so wrong about this. I was out here saying after the draft that Schoonmaker by week 10 would be your number 1 tight end.
Oh, wow. So you just ignored all the things that we've been talking about with rookie tight ends?
Because I think it's dumb. Like, I don't like that whole trend thing. Like, just because it's been this way in the past means it's going to certainly be this way right now.
No, of course. And I guess the idea is not necessarily that it has to be that way. It's that it tends to be that way. And I think that it's less like predictive in understanding that there's certain things about this position that make it difficult for young players or, new guys to the league, prospects coming in, to fully acclimate and produce in the ways that you might expect a tight end to produce. Understand that has already understood the landscape and has a little bit of veteran to him. And so I think that was really the point more than anything. Can I give you a little bit of ratings news, as we are wont to do as the home of the Cowboys, because apparently people enjoy this even though y'all are not involved in the actual rating stuff.
Yeah.
You get your jollies from it or whatever. So I guess I'll give this to you, as I think that's what Amazon Prime did. They said, I guess I'll give this to you. Notoriously, the streamers have been pretty guarded when it comes to their ratings and things of that nature. However, Thursday Night Football's matchup between the Cowboys and the Seahawks, they said here, and they gave us the numbers on it. That game averaged 15.26 million viewers, making it the most watched game on Prime Video and the most streamed NFL game in history.
Wow.
At its peak, 17.76 million viewers tuned into the game. And so, yeah, again, we're not often made privy to all of these numbers.
Yeah.
However, it's just one of those instances where they're like, here is a whole bunch of people that have turned in. Through the first 11 weeks, Thursday Night Football is averaging 12.58 million. So you compare that to the 15.05 million. Or sorry, that's the wrong number. Then 15.26 million that they got. Look, it is another data point in what we know. There's a lot of Cowboys fans, and even the people that aren't Cowboys fans are going to tune in to watch the Cowboys. Particularly, look, this was a Thursday night game that actually matched up kind of nicely compared to all the other slop that we got. And then it also delivered in some level of entertainment. I imagine there's a lot of Cowboys fans that imagine and hope that it did not deliver in a level of entertainment, because that would have mean that your Cowboys had put the Seahawks down in a way. But yeah, newsflash, Cowboys are real popular.
Breaking news here on the Get Right. Of course, that's what we do best. But I do have something shocking.
What's the shocking?
We're getting overtime on Monday Night Football.
And you're probably going to enjoy it compared to other instances when Monday Night Football goes to overtime.
Yeah, it's 31 apiece in this game between the Jaguars and the Bengals that is now featuring two backup quarterbacks, as it is the battle of Jake Browning and C.J. Beathard on national TV. But hey, let me give my flowers. Jake Browning, 28 of 32 for 318 and a touchdown. So, I mean, he's getting the job done. Let's see if he can actually finish it here. But the Jaguars will be receiving the kick in overtime. We will keep you up to date if C.J. Beathard will earn himself a statue out there in Duval County.
All right, they're not doing all that.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yeah, got to support my fellow gingers, That's how it goes.
I have nothing to say to that. I literally have nothing to say
Thank you. Shout out John Gray. Got to finally meet
You did
him.
get a picture of John Gray.
Yeah.
Or with John Gray.
I was about to say of him. Yeah, I've done that a couple times at games.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I got a picture of you getting a picture with John Gray. Mm-hmm. A little meta,
Yeah, the multiverse of Medford. AM on the FM is coming up next. We are going to talk about music, and you choose weapon of war or garden decoration. Next on The Fan.
The more you listen, the harder we grind. The headlines are created here on DFW Sports Station 105.3, The Fan, and the Odyssey app.
You know how celebrities have their own chefs? Well, I might be able to top that.
Jackson Hewitt for an early loan on your tax refund, and you could walk out with up to $1,000.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to get money. Missing out would be great.
Appointments go fast. Book yours now at jacksonhewitt.com. Early refund advance offered to eligible clients. Application required. Finance charge applies. Loans by Republic Bank. Details at jacksonhewitt.com.
Gillette Intimate gives guys a gentle and easy shave on there. And around there. And even under there. Don't treat your groin like junk. Respect it with Gillette Intimate. The best a man can get. Buy now at a retailer near you.
Fill your game day cooler with the refreshing taste of Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Smooth, real brewed tea with a 5% kick of alcohol. Look for the bright yellow cans. Twisted Tea. Keep it twisted.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
Imagine moving into your new home before selling your old home. For top dollar, you can with Orchard. Here's one couple's story. Moving to Texas for work, they needed to sell their old home first. Move, rent an apartment, then move into their new home. Total nightmare. But with Orchard's Move First program, they could sell their old home after moving into their new home.
Orchard sold our old home in less than a week and for way more than we thought. So we got a boat.
Buy your next home before you sell. Get a free no obligation cash offer from Orchard.com. That's Orchard.com.
It's a Cowboys Monday, brought to you by Twin Peaks and K-Post Roofing and Waterproofing on 105.3 The Fan.
Back here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan, Alec Medford and Reginald Adatula with you until the top of the hour tonight. Shout out to Badass Lady T on Twitch. Love our Tolos and Twolos for sending us some Tiff's treats up to the studio for National Cookie Day.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was National Cookie Day, but I mean, that'll be a great way to find out. Eating the oatmeal raisin cookie on there.
I know, it's a great way to find out. So the truckwork.com text line is 877-881-1053. 877-881-1053 to get involved in the conversation, as well as Twitch and YouTube, twitch.tv/DallasFanCam or 105.3 The Fan on YouTube, because it's time for AM on the FM.
What does this button do? Please, please, do not push the button. You have no idea what it...
Don't you dare touch that dial.
Don't you dare do it. It's time for AM on the FM here on The Fan. Appreciate you letting me invade your space for a little bit with some nonsensical chaos.
Yeah, I was like, don't do that. I'll call HR.
Yeah, that's, do we have that?
Yes, this is a regular company. There's definitely an HR department.
We're not out of HR.
I just know we've cut off some of the space in here and stuff, so I'm like, dude.
Oh no, there's still HR.
Like who's still here?
No,
I don't even know.
I don't know if our HR person is actually in the building. Now I think about it.
Huh. Interesting. Well, question of the day, as I will politely invade your space on the radio waves.
With consent, of course.
Yes, always here on the Get Right. We're big advocates of that. The question of the day, I'm not gonna lie, I was not really thinking of very hard until I realized it was National Cookie Day. So, the question of the day is, thanks to the Twolos.
How do you make a cookie?
Yeah, how do you make a cookie? Because I am a college student and I don't know how to cook or bake. No, that is not true. Neither of those are true.
Okay. You're not a college student? I get it. I knew you were lying.
Hey, I graduate next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It really is incredible.
And just a programming note, because of all the moving pieces of that and the holiday season, I believe you will not be around next week, but I will here on the Get Right from 7 to 11, 8 to 11, of course, on Monday and Wednesday. And then after that, I'll be gone. So I don't know what happens after that.
Forever?
Yeah, gone forever.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'll be back.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm taking 5 days to myself to just kind of reset, because, I'm only graduating college once, I think.
I don't know. You could always get a master's, or you get a second bachelor's.
A doctorate degree.
Yeah, I could.
Dr. Medford.
I could be
postgraduate degree. There's all sorts of things.
I could be like Doc Emmerich, be a play-by-play guy that has a doctorate for, whatever reason. That'd be kind of cool. But the question of the day is actually, what is the best dessert? 877-881-1053. I don't really I kind of moved away from the broad questions like that. I kind of want to go back because I like just the vast majority of, chaotic answers we get. So,
like somebody who might say something completely off the wall and you're like, I hadn't considered that a dessert. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. had what was it yesterday? I asked what's your favorite Christmas movie, and we were getting all kinds of stuff.
Oh yeah, you starting debates at this point.
Yeah, we were getting all kinds of stuff that is not in the Christmas movie genre, and I was just like, why are we doing this on my segment? That is crazy. So the best dessert, 877-881-1053. Reggie, would you like to start?
Bread pudding.
Okay.
Bread pudding.
Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, especially you get it warm. I mean, when it's made right, nice, warm, good texture, and then you get some ice cream on there. Fantastic. Sweet, little, it works out. It works out perfectly for me. Bread pudding. Filling, like it's not entirely sugar as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because sometimes some desserts, kind of make your tummy hurt. You know what I mean? And I am notorious for handling some bread pudding, if well-made bread pudding. Also, look, man, this is the thing. When we talk about food in general, one of the best places to get food is like Louisiana. And you think about like the bread pudding that you can get in New Orleans, those types of things, it'll change your life. And it has. It has changed mine.
806 Dr. Medford does sound a little more official and grown up than a Little Red Medford, yeah. I mean, I never came up with that name. I think AM on the FM is a little bit cooler. But, I had my humble beginning with the nosebleed seats at nights, and that's what they dubbed me because at the time, I mean, I'm still vertically challenged, but, at the time I was very little.
You could have fought that if you wanted to.
Yeah, I could have. But, when you're trying to make it, you don't really, fight the nickname.
You don't.
I mean, it worked. It stuck. That's all I needed.
Yeah,
I just needed something that stuck. Yeah, I mean, that's
you let
fair.
them. You let them put that on you.
I
should have fought. You should have punched them in his mouth. I don't know which one, but punch one of them. Just walk in.
I mean,
walk in, punch him in the mouth, see what happens. Actually, you end up in HR. Now we've gone all the way around.
We circled all the way back to the. This is amazing.
You're welcome.
This is why I love this segment. I'm supposed to drive the chaos, and Reggie's the one feeling it. This is incredible,
brother. It's 10:30 at night, and before we got on the air, I said I wanted to go to sleep. So,
and guess what? I agreed.
Yeah. Shout out to pastry chef Eric, my guy.
Yes.
214 said brown butter bread. Goodness. Let's one more time.
Excuse me. What'd you call me?
Brown butter bread pudding. There you go.
There's a lot of alliteration going on.
Brown butter.
Try saying that 5 times fast.
I have no idea what I was trying to say at that point.
That was generational. Pastry chef Eric knows what's up, though.
He's a pastry chef.
Yeah, he's
supposed to. He's paid to know.
He quite literally knows what's up.
This is the expert. Okay, so the 903. You see this text, right? You ready to have this debate? All right, Medford, I need you to read this text for me, and I want to see how you say the name of this pie.
Pecan pie with vanilla ice cream. Die Hard. Best Christmas movie. Tolo.
All right, Rodrigo. First of all, I didn't see the Christmas movie. I'm sure that made you upset.
Yeah, that's why I sighed.
Rodrigo, do you take any offense to how Medford said the name of that pie?
I'm sorry, Alec. It's pecan pie.
I know.
It's pecan pie.
I said that intentionally.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's have the debate. Pecan, 877-881-1053.
I'm a weirdo and I bounce back and forth.
I do as well.
Because my mom called it pecan. I think my grandma called it pecan. Someone in the family did. I don't remember who it was or what side of the family, but I know someone else that actually made it at one point called it pecan. But my mom always called it pecan. So I just bounce back and forth because I don't care. I'm not that pressed about it. So, I mean, it's all in good fun.
Ooh, from the 512, they bring up something, and I'm probably not going to pronounce this correctly because I'm not finding a pronunciation here, which I'm definitely saying wrong. I guarantee I'm saying it wrong. But this is an Indian dessert.
I was not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the 903.
Made by boiling milk, sugar, or not going to say that right either. I apologize. And rice. Usually flavored with dry fruits, nuts, saffron, things of that nature.
Intriguing.
All right. I'm willing to try it. I have not had it.
Intriguing.
Before. So shout out to our Indian brethren. You opening my eyes to things that I need to try.
Badass Lady T said no to the walking in and punching them. The nosebleeds, walking in and egg them. Because you
did do that.
I did do
that. But you only did that to Broadus, who's the nicest of the G bag. Like let's create the egging rankings, right? Because I'm pretty sure Broadus would be last on that list. If you were
I was put in a position where I had a chance to be all over the social pages, and I was like, you know what, sure. And And I mean, let's be honest. I was up here taping a Rangers spring training game.
Sure.
To be
Dang,
played.
is that long ago? Huh?
Yeah, to be played at 9:00 at night. So it was like 2:00, right? So I was bored. So I'm like, hey, game hadn't started. I'm just sitting here doing nothing. May as well go egg someone. And hey, I mean, there's still probably egg stains on the carpet. My bad. Also, Cupcake King has been another nickname that has been put upon me because of the cupcaking of Corey Majors because he did not hold up his Oxnard bet. I pay off bets for you. I'm a hitman. Not Brett the Hitman Art. You know,
okay.
Not
All
that
right.
level.
Yep. There's
But-
some rest for you.
Yep, had to get it in because I did see who was it? The 903. That's what I was laughing at when you were trying to read a language that is not native to yours. They were saying, or just punch both like Kevin Owens did. Great reference.
Okay.
Great reference, 903. I appreciate you.
Got nothing for you. Were you supposed to have depth and added layers to this AM on the FM before I completely hijacked it from you?
A little bit.
Okay.
I had a couple things I want to hit real quick.
Please go for that.
Because
we got time.
I had to pay off a tease.
Okay, yeah, true. We should do that.
So I said, you get to choose. Is it a weapon of potential mass murder or a garden decoration? Because the headline reads, couple's garden ornament turns out to be a live bomb from the 19th century.
Pardon?
Yeah. So, Cyan and Jeffrey Edwards from Milford Haven in Wales were under the assumption that
That's got to be Kean.
this bomb that they had was a dummy, since they had been told that it was owned by their family.
Okay, so it's actually... See, I thought this was like a garden gnome that turned out to be a bomb. You saw a bomb and you were like, nah, it's good. Trust me, this won't explode. And you were like, fine, I'll take your word for it. That's crazy talk.
They assumed that it was a dummy since they had been told it was owned by their family for more than 100 years.
Oh, so nobody even told them that it wasn't working. They just assumed that?
Yeah. And however, when
they were the dummies. Get out of here.
A police officer showed up on their doorstep having spotted the ordnance, they were shocked to learn that the bomb had been altered and or the bomb squad had been alerted, excuse me, and would be arriving the next day. And so they're like, why? Why are you doing this?
What? You know what? They deserve everything they got.
Yeah, so they said
Everything.
they did not get a single minute of sleep that night knowing that they had a live bomb in front of their house, and tests would later prove that yes, it was a live bomb, according to, or further proving the police's suspicion, and they revealed that it dated back to either 1880 or 1890, somewhere in between.
Oh, so like hundreds of years old bomb.
Yes.
I'm sure that those are stable.
And apparently it had a very small amount of charge left in it after 100 years,
Well,
but
that
it
is
was
nice.
still a live bomb that could have done damage to the house.
I'm glad that it did not do damage, but come on, y'all. Like, what? Why would you just assume that? You're not going to find out?
My dad told me a great quote about assuming when I was like 6, and I assumed I could do something and not get in trouble for it. I don't even remember what it was, but he told me something I've repeated to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming nothing great comes out of it, because all it does is make an ass out of you and me.
Never heard that one before.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I have. My
think it's
uncle
great.
told me that one.
Yeah, I think it's great.
That was my joke, Rodrigo, because everybody's heard of that one.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, I know everybody's heard it, but when you're young, you think your parents invent everything because they're the first ones to tell you.
Fair enough.
Or
Fair
the
enough.
first ones to show you something. So you're like, that. My dad did that.
Your
it's
dad,
like, yep.
your dad created that.
And it's like,
100%.
no, that's actually been around for 300 years. It's like, oh, well, thanks for ruining my life. And then real quick, I just wanted to mention the Spotify Wraps and Apple Music Replays or whatever your streaming service does, whatever they call it.
Yep. Time rewind.
I love the different reaction to different people's stuff because I got quite the reaction to mine when I posted it on my Instagram story at Alec on the Radio. It's kind of typical for my age group.
I'm guessing Drake's in here.
Who?
Drake's in here.
Yes.
Okay.
He's number 5.
Oh, okay. A little bit lower. Well, I know you well enough, so I'm going to guess that her is in here.
She was number 6.
Okay.
She
All
slid
right.
down a lot because Drake's album came out. I checked I always check in June. She was number 3 at one point.
You went to a Post Malone concert this year, so I think you probably ran up Posty at some point. Did you not?
He is number 2.
All right. We're working this. All right.
And he put out a new album this year.
Yeah. So
Yeah, no, I figure. I'm trying to think. Who else? Someone else is at. All right. Do we go Weekend here, Rigo? Do you feel like that's a good guess here, or is that not a good guess here?
LMA, because you went to an LMA concert this year.
LMA is number 9.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Wait,
not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all.
And it's funny because all of my top 10 are at least 1,000 minutes listened. So pretty good depth there. Your guess is The Weeknd?
I'm done guessing at this point. I don't know. I don't want to embarrass myself.
He was
this.
number one.
Okay, very good.
And
is everything okay?
Yeah, hold on.
Are you all right?
We'll get to there. Rounding out the top 5, number 3 was Travis Scott, mainly because the new album, and I saw him a couple months ago. And number 4 was Metro Boomin because he's a great producer.
Yeah, Metro Boomin.
And the minutes discrepancy. Drake at number 5 was 2,400 minutes, Metro 3,000, Travis Scott 4,000. Then it jumps Post Malone to 7,800, up from 4,000 or 4,100 for Travis Scott. And then from Post Malone to The Weeknd, it goes from 7,800 to 16,997.
Oh boy, you were really wallowing in that sad boy music.
Some stuff happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You need to talk about it, or
that's what the talking doctor is for.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad that you're seeing the talking doctor. That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, some stuff happened.
Okay.
It wasn't really even the sad aspect. It was the toxic one because I was just kind of mad.
But Future's not on here anywhere. Okay, and there he is. As soon as I said that, he looks at his phone like, "Oh no, it's on here. Don't worry about it."
He was number 10.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, but her and SZA made an appearance on there too.
SZA's great.
SZA's fantastic for multiple reasons.
All right. Okay.
That's AM on the FM right here on 105 through the Fan, where I need help.
Yeah, send your words of encourement to Medford because apparently it's been his apps are telling him, "Hey, buddy, glad you made it."
Yeah,
elevator for you, huh, buddy?
Especially
Glad
the
you
top
made it.
songs. It just gets worse when you look at the song by song. But I'm going to quote the 3-time Hall of Famer and say, "I got stories."
Okay. All right. Very good.
That's it.
Good banana pudding, good homemade banana pudding, and homemade apple pie.
I never even gave mine. I'm dumb.
Just go ahead and get that from me.
I'm just gonna
appreciate you.
You know what? I'm gonna say pumpkin pie.
Really wasted yours.
It hasn't been for a while. Like I hated it as a kid. I've appreciated it as an adult.
And then you decided at some point to make that your absolute favorite dessert.
I lied. Peanut butter pie.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm changing that. Ask Chris Arnold. I make a mean peanut butter pie.
At least it's eclectic. All that's left is Final Call. We'll do it next on The Fan.
Hey, pie. What? My granddaddy always said, if you got a problem that you can't solve, it helps to get out of your head, pie.
Coming up Tuesday morning on Sean and RJ, more CFP fallout. Jerry Jones live at 8:30 to preview Filthy, and another Cowboys giveaway at 8 o'clock.
to deal with the IRS.
Hi, I'm Dallas tax attorney Nick Namath. If you've received a letter from the IRS, you have the right to choose an experienced tax lawyer to handle your settlement case. For over 20 years, I've helped thousands of clients reach affordable resolutions with the IRS.
Call Nick Namath, the DFW tax attorney, at 972-484-0829 or visit myiRSteam.com.
Nothing turns game day into a great day like stocking up at Specs and cheering on the Cowboys. As a proud partner of the Dallas Cowboys, Specs has everything you need to turn your pregame party into a full-on football feast. With lower prices on a stadium-sized selection of world-class wines, spirits, beers, seltzers, and gourmet foods, Specs is your one-stop shop for all your game day essentials. Cowboy up at Specs. The fun starts here.
We're excited to team up with the world champion Texas Rangers in support of this year's Rangers Toy Drive Thursday afternoon, December 7th from 4 to 7 at Globe Life Field.
We love giving back, and that's why the G-Bag Nation and 105.3 The Fan is teaming up with the Rangers.
Join Rangers pitcher John Gray, his wife Jacqueline, and other Ranger players and coaches as they look to spread some joy this holiday season for families in need.
Bring any new toy to the ballpark on December 7th and support local DFW kids this holiday season.
Everyone who brings a toy will receive a complimentary ticket to a 2024 Texas Rangers home game.
For more information, go to Rangers.com/toy drive.
This segment of the Get Right is brought to you by Classic Chevrolet. Classic Chevrolet is leading the way to finish the year #1 in America. They're racing hard with year-end savings on over 400 Silverados. Shop them all at ClassicChevrolet.com. This is Texas. This is Classic Chevrolet. Find new roads and relax and enjoy the difference, why don't you?
One final time here on the Get Right, about to bring you the final call in just a moment. Alec Medford and Reginald Adatula and Rigo Mendoza holding things down for you. Appreciate Rigo's work tonight. Thanks for sticking with us through the Cowboys hour and before the final call. Since, apparently I listen to girl music, this return music, this is Lost in the Echo by Linkin Park. This is one of my favorite songs when I was in my deep emo phase in middle school.
So like 3 years ago.
It's time for the final call.
You had to see that one coming.
Yeah,
from him.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Yep,
yep. You know what? Just gonna lay down and take the L.
How long does the emo phase last before it's a phase?
I think this was like a 4 or 5 year entanglement. It was, it was great. It was really great. No, it wasn't. It was a bad time. I went through some bad fashion decisions.
I mean, we all do.
Yeah, but this was generationally mid.
And then even if you're like, this is the thing that's funny about time is even if you are on the cutting edge of whatever the fashion is at that point, give it about 10, 15 years, you're going to look back at that like, what the actual was I doing? Like, what were we doing collectively? And so, yeah. It's all good. That's how life works, baby. You know what I mean? You just keep going along and
it happens.
Try and do the best you can.
It happens.
That's right.
It's the final call, and I do believe, Reggie, we do have some sound we want to get to because we didn't get to much during the show.
Oh, do I want to rehash the college football playoff at this point? Well, first of all, I think we should point out that the Bengals will go ahead and win on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that is true.
It took a long time in overtime, but Jake Browning ultimately is able to get the Bengals into field goal position. Evan McPherson knocks down a field goal. I can't remember exactly the distance on the field goal, but I believe it was like 30-something yards, or maybe 40 yards, to ultimately 48. Okay, a lot longer than I remembered. My bad, y'all. But they ultimately will win 34-31. That score, I do remember. That will take the Bengals to 6-6 and even 500 as the AFC North is real bunched together. And the AFC South, the Jaguars are now 8-4. So in a division where I think we all looked at it and we were like, yeah, there's one team that's any good and the rest of them are junk. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 8-4, which is not, I don't think anything to, be too, look down your nose at. However, the Colts are 75 and the Texans are 75. So there's a real race for the winner of the AFC South, and there's 3 teams still in playoff contention in that division. Just reminding us that we don't really know anything going into these NFL seasons. Like, that's the one thing that I feel like every year, at least for me personally, because I don't want to speak for no one else. And I try and come in with the level of humility where I'm like, look, man, you don't know everything. But you start getting some, I feel like I know some things. I feel like I'm starting to stash these things away. And then as the season goes, it's a continual upheaval, right? It's a continual feeling like I'm establishing myself. And okay, I think I'm starting to figure it out. And then a week, 2 weeks, you're like, actually, you don't know anything. Stop thinking you know things, you idiot.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with this division because color me surprised. I did not have the Colts being competitive without their first-round rookie quarterback.
I don't know if I'd had them being this particular level of competitive with their first-round rookie quarterback.
So it makes it all that more impressive. And I did not have the Texans being this good. I knew they would be better. I knew they definitely upgraded in the coaching department. Definitely upgraded at quarterback. Got a couple of veteran guys to come in and help defensively. Derek Stingley, playing better football. Expected big things from him. And here we are. This division is suddenly competitive again. And I love it. It's good for the AFC. Why not? Because I'm ready for a new powerhouse to be born, and we're not quite there yet. But I can see the inklings of it happening soon.
The Jags is the new powerhouse in your mind?
Like the Jacksonville Jaguars have promise.
Okay.
Like I feel like they have the right coach and the right quarterback in place, and they just need to continue to build around. But I mean, heck, in a few years, the Houston Texans could be back to AFC dominance again if they continue this success and just continue to build around that quarterback and DeMeco Ryans' incredible defensive play calling.
Yeah, okay. Look, I guess that's fair enough, and we will see over time. I also think that we oftentimes will get in these places where we believe that we see what this team is going to be, and oh man, this team will dominate for years to come, or this team will be atop of the division in so many years, and then we find out that these things aren't linear and these things break all sorts of different ways. So I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see about that. A reminder that that Trevor Lawrence leaves this game with a hurt ankle. He underwent X-rays. I still haven't seen any results on what happened there. I'll look for those. But again, Bengals will win this one 34-31 on Monday Night Football. We've been talking about this evening the college football playoff and how Florida State, an undefeated ACC championship, Florida State is left out in favor of SEC champion Alabama.
Tom Pelissero, NFL Network, says the initial ruling on Trevor Lawrence's ankle is a sprain per sources. He will have an MRI tomorrow. Okay, so that's probably good. The idea that it's not some level of break. Obviously, X-ray, you start looking for bones and possible breaks. And if it seems like that has kind of gone a good way, and so if he can just kind of get himself to a place where he feels comfortable, and we've seen quarterbacks kind of try and just immobilize the ankle in some way, see if they can kind of stand in and throw. And I imagine that is significantly better results or news for anybody who is intrigued by the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is my thing about the college football playoff, and I made my point that the logic when it comes to the college football committee isn't even particularly consistent all the way around. I just want to give you the idea. I want you to hear Boo Corrigan, who is the committee chair this year for the college football playoff. This is what he said on television on ESPN as to why he chose Alabama.
Why did you choose Alabama?
Well, I think in looking at it, and again, that was the decision, was Alabama at 4. Florida State is a different team than they were through the first 11 weeks. Coach Norvell, their players, their fans, an incredible season. But as you look at who they are as a team right now, without Jordan Travis, without the offensive dynamic that he brings to it, they are a different team. And the committee voted Alabama 4 and Florida State 5.
This is the level of logic that you guys are trying to have the argument about, and this is why I just find it asinine all the way around. They're playing in your face.
They are.
Don't play back too much.
Yeah.
That's the way I look. But this is the thing. Also, college football, some of the fun and a lot of the fun is having the argument. And so, if you want to have the argument, dude, just understand it's not going to be like towards a particular end. I don't think.
'Tis true, and hearing it from the man himself, it's kind of wild that it's just that simple level of thinking that, hey, they're a different team. Ha, let's not put them in. I don't know. I don't get paid enough to make those decisions. So, Boo, you can keep on going. And we're not going to keep on going because we're up against the clock. Thanks for tuning in to the Get Right here tonight. Want to thank again Rigo Mendoza for his hard work today. For myself, Alec Medford. For tonight, my partner, Reginald Atatula, saying so long for now. Wake up with Sean and RJ at 5:30, but let's get out of here.
Be easy. Peace.
miss any show segments? Tisk, tisk, tisk. But fear not. You can go back and listen to our bad shows, and it's easier than ever on the Odyssey app. Check it out.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products.